Mexico is going to be your Clash Royale champion. Takes it. Sergio Ramos wins.
Huge. And nothing to stop the Hog Rider. It's going to get swing on the tombstones. That's it.
Nobody is the first ever CRL World Champions.
And there you have it. The fire goes up. It's a close this time. 293. They're doing it. Team Liquid is going to be your CRL champion.
Team Liquid is done in surgical go.
117 HP remaining. EQ trying to make room. Team Queso completes the reverse sweep, and they are your 2020 Clash Royale League World Champions.
Three of the top players in 2021, three newcomers to our monthly final, and one former champion looking to repeat, but there can only be one champion here in month July for CRL 2021. Hello and welcome back. I'm Rich Slayton. Joining me as always, my friend Andrew Guy, for another installment of Clash Royale League. Today, our final six will battle for points and $20,000.
$20,000 for first place, over $40,000 being given away today. I am so very excited for finals Sunday, and a big part of our finals are, of course, our format, which we need to talk through, our duels format. It was really exciting to see all the decks that came into play yesterday because of the duels format. We saw a lot of win conditions. We saw Graveyard, we saw Bait, we saw Mortar, we saw it all. Players have to bring 4 decks to the competition consisting of 32 unique cards. Each deck can only be played once per match, and these are best of 3. So the first player to get to 2 game wins inside of that said set gets to move on, and this is a double elimination bracket, Rich, but we're already through that first round of eliminations.
Oh yeah, we'll have some coming up very soon as they are both fighting for this prize pool. Of course, 7th and 8th already awarded, but up here from forward on, it's that 10K, that 20K, going for the big numbers, but more importantly, those big points, chasing, trying to get after Mohamed Light, who went out early, a lot of points on the board, and maybe one of these top 3 players can make a run at that top spot.
That's right, Viper is right there, Lucas is right there, but first, let's talk about Lucas's matchup of the day. It is the match of the day to start our day. Lucas and Minimal, you'll be seeing them coming up third, so get your votes in right now. Not only can you compete in CRL, you can also cast a vote here at CRL. So in the chat, hashtag Lucas or hashtag Minimao to get your vote in for who you think is going to win that set. And I know it doesn't matter what I think because I'm leaving in just a moment, but I want to go with the rookie today. I love Lucas. I love what he's done. I actually think I'm probably kind of ice skating uphill with this one, but Minimao did some really, really special stuff yesterday when we talk about this bracket, Rich.
Mao's been pretty good for a while, and nothing was better than yesterday, taking out the leader, Mohamed Light, and then Reichert as well. So today, a big challenge against him. A win here guarantees him a top 2 spot against Lucas, who is looking to repeat, looking to go back-to-back here, but our first 2 matches of the day will be Samuel Basoto and Viper, and then Sato and Reichert down in that elimination bracket. All 4 of those players having given up that extra life. Loser leaves town for the rest of the day for those 4 guys.
A little crazy to see Samuel Basoto and Viper fighting for their lives down there in the elimination bracket. Now, while we have seen a couple players go from elimination to exaltation, it's going to be tough to do that today over Minimao and Lucas X Gamer. So while you get to call these first matches, I'm going to drink some coffee, I'm going to sit back, have some breakfast, and watch some awesome Clash Royale, my brother.
Well, I'll see you later, bud. It's going to be a good one. And joining me for these first couple of matches of the day, world champion coach of Team Liquid, a longtime member of the community, and fantastic all-around guy, my friend EB7, Eric Benamou. Eric, we have a killer match to open it up. You have the Hog Xe NATO Master Viper, who has yet to play the deck that keeps getting him here in the monthly finals, up against one of the all-time ladder greats in Samuel Basoto.
Yeah, and I highly doubt we're going to see it in this specific match, just because you're going up against Basoto, right? If you're going to throw that out there, go do it against a rookie, but I'm so excited. Not only is this 2 of the best players, it's I think the 2 players that have most qualified for these finals. They've done it back to back to back, and on top of that, it's an elimination match.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on the line, and as Eric said, these guys have a lot of qualifications. Samuel Basoto, the current leader for monthly finals, but the most important thing, that monthly championship has not come his way yet. Viper, the Frenchman, making his third appearance on the back of an excellent ladder season in 2021.
Yeah, and I really want to see Viper get in his groove, right? Because we've seen Basoto show that brilliance, but it seems like Viper has always struggled a little bit once he gets here to this stage, and I want to see if he can make that lower bracket run that I know he's capable of. I just think he's missing that second comfort deck.
It's going to be curious to see not only how these guys get past each other, but then, of course, there's still two guys in the winner's bracket. One of them in Lucas Gamer clicking perfectly right now. Going to be hard to get through both of his extra lives if he does beat Mao in that upper bracket final. Looking at Samuel and Viper, both of them posting a pretty nice win rate here. Let's go ahead and jump into the game. The Frenchman at the top of your screen and Samuel Basoto at the bottom.
Started off with Spear Goblins, and I love this matchup also in the sense that you know we're going to get that Hog EQ matchup against probably another cycle match. If we don't get it first off here, which I actually like. I think Viper has gotten too used to starting off with that Hog, and I like the change that he's coming in with today.
Whoa, interesting configuration here. Maybe looking P.E.K.K.A. Ram Rider for Viper. Two tank killers in the deck to open things up. Samuel Basoto, though, going very quick cycle.
I don't know if you're as excited as I am, but I love watching players like Basoto, like Lucas, even Viper, Mo, whenever they have these quick minor Tesla decks and they have to defend against these huge pushes. I absolutely love watching that.
First defense going okay, although that will turn a pig to that opposite side tower. Pigs going both directions. Ram Rider in. Tesla not in cycle, has to rocket, but Mother Witch going to add a bit of chip here, I believe.
Yeah, and this is where I would have loved to see just a reset out of Viper, right? Just start again. He just spent rocket. You're up to Elixir. Go again from the back, either with the Ghost, with an Inferno Dragon, or a P.E.K.K.A. You know he has no Elixir to come in, and I think Viper just needs to settle in a little bit, take control of the match. That was a good first push, replicate it over and over again, but then start again, and eventually you're gonna have such a big lead on Elixir that there's no way to stop it.
Sets up Inferno Dragon to that right-hand lane one more time, where he does currently have the advantage for Viper. Royal Ghost not going to pick up the miner, but does put some damage on, and now dual lane pressure coming in from the Frenchman.
Yeah, and that Ghost combined with the Mother Witch is going to be so difficult to stop. Those Spirit Goblins just give it way too much value on the Mother Witch, and I think that's what really caused all the issues in that first push, right? And that's a beautiful Ram Rider, even though it does get a hit on the left, that Dark Prince.
Yeah, eating a big Dark Prince charge as the first 2 minutes go away. Double Elixir time now flowing 15-24 to 19-30. Lead still for Viper.
Yeah, and these Spear Goblins, I like the way he's playing them now, because you know that you won't be able to use them defensively as well as you're used to. These are players that get so much value out of them, but whenever there's Ghost and there's that Mother Witch, you might as well just throw them on the bridge, try to force out an early defense, and even then maybe get 1 or 2 hits on the board for a little extra chip. So I do like that change.
Mother Witch does go down. Viper now starting to pressure into this left-hand lane, letting Samuel Basoto dictate the action for a moment.
Yeah, and that'll get a hit. That recruit will. Okay, there we go. He got the P.E.K.K.A. in just in time. Yeah, you don't want to give up any damage, especially when you're playing against Minor Rocket. If this was Minor Poison, you got a little more leeway, but we know what happens with triple Elixir and those rockets.
Now a lot on the board for Viper. Ram Rider does come down. Tesla's going to go down in time as well. And Tesla does get back around, but now Samuel Basoto fighting a little bit off the back foot.
Yeah, and that won't get a hit just because of how quickly he cycles, and that's what's really saving him here. Most of the times we'll see that Spear Goblins with Miner, but the fact that he has Spear Goblins and Skellies is what has kept him in the game, because I think Viper is playing beautifully. His pushes are well timed. He's splitting the lane pressure, and it's just the fact that he always has 2 Teslas by the time that Ram Rider comes down.
Ram Rider behind King Tower, minute 24 left. And again, the minor pickups have not been happening. Not a really great option besides the Ewiz. which Viper's been using primarily to win bridge battles.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised in that defense with the Inferno Dragon there on that miner. He needs to be really careful doing that again, because now heading into triple elixir, I'm mostly positive he's gonna come out with a miner rocket if he does that type of defense again. You're just giving up way too much value on that rocket. In triple elixir, you're not put in a situation where you can't cycle to a Tesla, the Skellies, and make everything work. So just be very careful on how you defend now.
Triple is going this time. Royal Ghost gets down. Does not stop the damage though. Chip in from the log and from the miner. Rocket to the right hand side. So no rocket damage on tower for this particular cycle, but still, it is Samuel with a significant lead. Viper has not shown that final card here, expecting it's going to be a big spell of some sort. Might be lightning, could be poison.
Yeah, just another Tesla. Every time you think he's gonna get away with it, the Ram Rider might connect. The Tesla went down just in time. There comes another one, and another one, and another one, and he's so calculated, and there we go. The miner with the rocket, and it's just a matter of time now. And Samuel definitely, I like the gameplay a lot more that we're seeing from him coming out today than yesterday.
Samuel Basoto gonna take game number 1 in decisive fashion. Pretty much never out of control, fell from behind early, but easy defense, made a good mid-game adjustment with those spears, and got the job done in game number 1. Advantage Brazil.
Yeah, advantage Brazil for sure. But I do want to touch on the fact that I like what Viper did. It's not what we expected out of him. I don't think you or I or even Samuel, it worked out very well, right? Sometimes it just does that. It happens. It's part of Clash. You look for something and it ends up matching even better. He had the delivery, had everything. But I like Viper switching it up. Try to see what he can really make work, because at this point, I don't think it's about finishing first this month. It's about making yourself comfortable in this situation and then moving on, and he'll probably be back the next 2 months.
You gotta wonder, they're replaying that same moment you talked about, Eric, the Electro Wizard double down in that opening exchange. You have to wonder about, if he had not played that, how much of an advantage he might have had going into the second phase of that game.
Yeah, that is the only thing that I really consider a big mistake here, just because I think he was up 2 or 3 elixir with P.E.K.K.A in cycle again. So just the P.E.K.K.A all the way in the back, he doesn't have anything that's really going to pressure you with only 3 elixir. You can take a miner, you can tank a full miner, because your towers were at 2,500 and 2,100, so it's not that big of a deal. But you live and you learn. Maybe it's just Viper not being as comfortable with this deck type, and he'll have to work at it.
Yeah, you take a look at that, and the P.E.K.K.A pressure with the Mother Witch, given the skeletons and the spear goblins, it made a lot of trouble for Samuel early on. But once we get into that double and then triple elixir, you're not worried about spear goblins and you're not worried about skeletons. You have Tesla, you're able to set the line so much easier. So there was definitely a window. The window closed, and now maybe the season or maybe the month will close on Viper here if Samuel can get this next win.
Yeah, this is rough, man. You're going up against someone who you've seen Samuel on Twitter, right? You've seen him talking. He wants to win this. He's tired of qualifying and now winning it. So I just don't see him giving up a 1-0 lead and being brought back. It's just really, really tough when someone has that much ambition to win. And he's that seasoned veteran. He's so young, so it feels weird to say it, but he is a veteran in the game and in CRL.
Inferno Tower in response to the Baby Dragon and Valk. That'll get nice value. You see Samuel Basoto kind of take a moment and take stock. I don't think he liked the look of that one.
Take a moment and realize all your troops go down to that Inferno Tower and there's nothing you can do. That is not a moment you want to take, but that is the building you want to have. Whenever you see a Valk, you see a Baby Dragon, Mega Minion, those troops are all really slow, and the Baby Dragon very low DPS. He's looking really good right now.
First minute away. Viper has not put any significant damage on, but does have the lead with 2291 on Samuel's right-hand tower. Viper has had a pretty good 2021, of course, with multiple top 10 finishes on ladder, not to mention a second-place finish playing for his country, France, in the No-Tilt Worlds.
Yeah, and it's funny because as casters of CRL, we say, like, he finally wants to win and all this, and then we're talking about someone that's literally top 10 every single ladder season, has been here 3 times in a row. So it's just, I guess, the standard we hold him to because we expect so much from him. He is such a good player, and you know what? I'll be happy the day we get to see him play that XC Hog rocket deck. That's all I want.
2 Dart Goblins will do a pretty short work of that graveyard, and so far things going all the way of Viper. So interesting combination, right? You have the Log, the Fire Spirit, the Valk, Dark Goblins, all these options to deal with the graveyard, and then you really only have one thing that you need to set the line high, and that's the Inferno Dragon, which so far has done the job of stopping every single, and a little cheek there out of Samuel, but doesn't even get the connection as the skeletons come out.
Yeah, that was a really, really nice play, but at the end of the day, like you said, just too many defenses. I think this is the perfect deck that you want to run when you're in this sort of situation, when you're in this matchup, and he misses a Goblin, and it was tanked for by the Valk. Just everything, I don't want to say everything going wrong, but the whole matchup is just so unfavorable.
Final 20 seconds of regulation. So far, Viper making it look easy, and certainly with this matchup, not going to be hard to make that happen. Now, King Tower activation, but
a little too
might
late.
be too little too late.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and agree with the too little too late. There's Rocket, there's Log. That barrel will still connect once or twice. There's no Bar Barrel in cycle now, and that Inferno Dragon will deal with that Baby Dragon as well. So that's going to get a hit there, and just Rocket whenever you're ready. You don't have to close it out now, right? This is a very, very important thing that we've spoken about a ton. If you get too anxious, if you want to close it out, bring it back 1-1, and you rock it too soon, that's when problems can happen.
Is there any validity to Samuel switching lanes here?
I don't think so, just because as soon as he sees the Baby Dragon or a Valk, he's gonna Inferno high up, make sure to take care of it like he did just there. It's not even gonna cross the bridge, and I genuinely don't see how he could win this. He has to Fireball the Dark Goblin, and then you still have a Valk for the graveyard. It's too tough.
Oh, and the Fireball goes to just about nothing. Samuel knows that was his last real chance, and that's going to be, Bar Barrel doesn't even get the last Goblin. Samuel's certainly frustrated right now, and you understand why.
Yeah, it is frustrating for sure playing a match like this, but if I'm Samuel here, I wouldn't get too down on myself. You didn't play a bad game. There are just games that you can't really do anything about, and Viper just had to live that through game number 1. The only way Viper was going to get through in that game number 1 was if Samuel made a mistake. Same thing for Samuel here. Viper didn't make any mistakes, so you shouldn't be too down on yourself. Both of you have that game, and now is when you want to see that analysis. You want to see bring me something different, and if I'm Samuel, and I'm prepared for that Hog EQ deck. I am 100% prepared for that. Beat me with anything else other than that.
So we've seen Rocket and Log played by both players, and of course on the side of Samuel, Fireball's out, Bar Barrel's out, Tornado's out. On the side of Viper, Snowball and Poison, but Viper did already play Mother Witch in that first matchup. So one thing we have not seen from either side yet is the Hog Rider. Yeah,
Hog Rider and EQ. The only thing is that there is no Log, like you said. So without Log, that deck does suffer a little bit. Maybe he has a different variation to it. He's definitely not going to play the Hog Xe deck as no Rocket is available. I'm really curious to see what he has in store. And if I'm Viper, I just don't pull out the Hog. I'm sorry, man. Basoto and Viper know each other so well that you know he's going to be prepared. Basoto is working with people. He joined Chasmat Gaming, right? They have their analysts. They have their coaches. You cannot be too predictable right now.
So far in these two matches, the faster cycle deck has taken the day. Now, there have been some other matchup elements as well, but you have two players who both know cycle very well, playing against heavier variations in those matchups. So the big question here is, we look at what they've played so far. What's remaining tends to lean itself towards heavier decks. Any thoughts on what we might see next?
Bring it on, man. There is no Inferno Tower on Viper's side. You can, if you want, you can go one of those Lava Loon type of decks. Even if he does come out with Tesla, that Lava Loon is still very hard to stop once you get it going. I would not mind that, and I wouldn't mind seeing a nice E-Giant, maybe an E-Giant variation for Viper.
P.E.K.K.A, Inferno Dragon, and Inferno Tower all gone for Viper, so a lot of tank killers no longer in the mix, but Samuel showing bridge spam so far.
We might be, we might get a P.E.K.K.A versus Mortar as well here. There's the EQ. You knew he was going to use it eventually. Whether it's with Hog or without Hog, that EQ was going to come out at some point, and it looks like Samuel is going with that bridge spam, and I don't mind seeing that at all.
Nice little -1 trade forced out there by Viper, so the two Elixir Spear Goblins bringing the arrows into play.
I'm not even playing this match, and I'm nervous for them just because it's two people that have qualified so much, and you know they want to move on and try to get their first win so badly that I'm like anxious for the match to like evolve and start getting the pushes in. This is gonna be so much fun.
First minute 15 away, and only a bit of chip done in one direction.
Yeah, and this should get defended pretty easily here, and the nice ghost there that will create a counter as well. That's the good thing about the ghost. Whether you like it or not, as long as it lives, you create a counter, because it's just not going to take any hits. So all you need is one sliver of HP like that. Thank you for showing us, and you get a free hit.
Yeah, great demonstration of the ghost capabilities. Of course, Royal Ghost has always been more of a bridge spam card, but we have seen a bit of an increase in its use ever since the change with the hover mechanic, which is, I think, one of the cooler changes that have happened in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I absolutely love that change, and I love the card itself. I think it's one of the most underrated cards. You create so much pressure, and you also defend so well, and this is a nice split lane push. He already used up that bandit, so now he's forced out into something that's not going to give him too much value on the counter either. Very, very nice push on a Viper.
So around, let's call it 5 elixir on the board right now for Samuel. Good elixir advantage overall for Viper. Arrows come out, and about 2 elixir ahead. Viper may be recognizing that and throws the muskie behind King Tower.
Yeah, and whenever you don't have your Hog Rider deck, just multiply them into those Hoggies, get 4 of them, and toss that EQ. It seems to be the way for Viper. He feels very comfortable, and you see the difference, right? He was up elixir, and with the P.E.K.K.A deck, when he wasn't as comfortable, he went directly on the bridge. Here he started a Musketeer in the back, Cannon Card in the back as well, and it seems like he's playing a lot more of his game here.
Mama Pega crossing the bridge for Samuel with the E-Wiz in tow. Cannon Cart picked up on the opposite side, and Royal Hogs into the right. Do we have anything in response for those Royal Hogs? Bandit, not going to do a whole lot. Recruit behind, Muskie behind as well. Viper putting the hurt right now on Samuel.
Yeah, I'm telling you, he just seems at home with this type of deck. I love seeing Viper play this, and the pressure and the defenses have been so impressive. I don't know which ones I like more. Usually you see a nice offensive plays and you stick to that, but the defenses, look at his towers and look at the pushes. They have been huge pushes, and he has not been able to do anything. And look at Samuel's frustration. That was just perfectly played by Viper.
Yeah, Samuel's certainly not happy with it. Mother Witch goes the opposite direction. Spears come down immediately. Good recognition from Viper, good situation from Viper, and this has been a rough one, and Samuel's just going to sit there and watch the game end. Looks like he might have even turned off his camera, and we're frozen with the look of anger.
Richie, he's still watching, man. No, yeah, he definitely it froze out, but it's frustrating. He started off very, very well, and then you get to the point where one matchup is impossible, and then this one, just Viper, there was no room to get through when he's playing this. Ultimately, to me, this is his comfort. EQ, Hoggies, pressure, whether it's Hog Rider or Hoggies, he just plays differently, man.
And this was a little bit of an early lead here for Samuel, but as time went on, there just wasn't a phenomenal answer to those Royal Hogs. And, you know, you play Fireball in game number 2. Great recognition from Viper that in game number 3, not going to be able to respond to it. And you're sitting there looking at Samuel and going, hey, P.E.K.K.A Ram Rider, we understand P.E.K.K.A Ram Rider is pretty popular, but you would love a Mega Knight, right?
Yeah, you definitely would love a Mega Knight. And this deck is an awesome deck. Like you said, though, without the Fireball, it does suffer a little. I love this deck, and I use it on ladder, and I've used it in the global tournament, but it has to have that Fireball aspect to it. If not, you're just too susceptible to even Flying Machines, right? If he would have gone with the Flying Machine deck, he would have suffered even more.
So 4 monthly finals for Samuel Basoto, but 4 times coming up with a good amount of points, good amount of cash, but never that #1 prize. Viper staying alive, moving on. And it started off in game number 1. This was all Samuel all the way, complete control from top to bottom.
Absolutely, and it was perfectly played by Samuel. When I saw him get off to this start with this deck, I thought he was gonna quick go 2-0 and move on. The analysis was perfect. Like I said, I'm not sure if he expected this out of Viper or not, but it worked out really, really nicely. And it all came down to always having Tesla in cycle, even 2 Teslas. He would start off the Tesla as soon as he would see the push, and then he would have one ready to go if that Tesla did get taken down. And that's what you have to do when you have that quick of a cycle.
I mean, I know that P.E.K.K.A Ram Rider has been historically the more popular of the 2 decks, but, you know, in previous metas earlier this year, we saw Mega Knight Ram Rider a bit more popular. We've seen P.E.K.K.A. Ram Rider twice in this match today, Eric. Any thoughts on that?
It all came down to when the Elite Barbarians got the buff. Once the Elite Barbarians got the buff, the P.E.K.K.A. gained a lot more utility in the meta, and then it just stuck a little bit. But the biggest problem I see is both of them use the deck with the variation. One was with poison, and that just doesn't take the troops off the board quick enough, and the other one with arrows. You need that fireball, and I think that is why they suffered with this deck as much as they did.
Game number 2, the Graveyard against the Bait, and of course it was Viper coming out on top in a pretty nasty matchup. And then here in game number 3, talk me through how these two decks come together.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see the synergy here, to be honest, with the EQ on the P.E.K.K.A. deck. I don't see where it really fits in. It was more of like, this is a spell I got. I would have even liked to see a lightning better. I think it deals with your pushes a lot easier when you're trying to get some damage. And at any point in this game, it always seemed like he was on the back foot just because he couldn't get his full push down. Every time that you saw a push coming in from Basoto, Viper would hogs on the other lane, force something out, and then that Ram Rider would just go into the mortar without the EQ, without the ghost pressure, and it was pretty simple defense, to be honest.
Yeah, just no good response to the Royal Hogs, and so that's the end for Samuel Basoto this month. He will go down in the second round of the lower bracket. Viper will move on, where he awaits the winner of Sato and Reichert, who we will find out his opponent here in just one moment. But Viper still staying alive in that top section, in that top 4. We'll see if he can keep on going.
Yeah, nah, if he plays the same way he just played those last 2 games, he can take this really far. I genuinely like the fact that he did not use Hog here, because now it gets his future opponents thinking. I can't just go out and expect Hog out of Viper like I have every other match that I've seen him. Run something different. I love what he did here, and you could tell that he used the end of yesterday to prepare for today. He didn't just take the day off and say, hey, I lost, I'll come back tomorrow. No, he came out with a set game plan against Basoto, and I hope he continues it.
Well, talking about game plans, 2 players waiting in the wings with pretty good game plans, I suspect. One of them, Mao, has been doing great with that exact game plan. Lucas has just been playing some of the best Clash Royale of his life these last couple months. So who do you think will win that upper bracket final? Will it be a repeat performance for Lucas? Will it be the upstart, Mini Mao? Hashtag Lucas, hashtag Mini Mao. Vote in the chat right now, no matter where you're watching, to get your vote in. But of course, that match isn't up right now. We have one more elimination match coming right your way, and it is going to be Sato of South Korea up against Reichert, one of the top 5 out of Germany. And this is going to be a big moment for either one of these 2 players.
Yeah, nah, big. You know, they have been so involved since they got in. They're all in on Clash, and I'm really excited. Every time a new org comes into Clash, I feel like their players get a boost, right? You really want to win. You want to show them, like, yes, we have a shot at this. And Reichert has been playing amazing Clash lately, to the point where a lot of people are starting to recognize, okay, Germany is not just Morten and Sam here. We've had Faust in the mix for a long time as well, but Reichert's name is sounding more and more as time goes on.
People aren't kind of quiet with his point collection. We talk about the top 4 who've been here. Reichert comes into the weekend in the 20th position on our global rankings for Clash Royale League. Has done it kind of quietly, making his first monthly final. But make no mistake, he is a contender, and after a good performance this weekend, might be a clincher for a spot at World Finals.
Yeah, and he's well-deserved, man. He is someone that I've seen in the shadows, and I love when players are like that, right? He's not tweeting about it. He's not doing anything. He's just working hard, making sure he can get that position, and then doing the gameplay, let the gameplay do the talking, and he works so hard, man. He genuinely does. He's practicing all day.
Well, given the success of his countryman, Morten now passing 100,000 subscribers in both English and German on YouTube, maybe after a performance like this weekend, it's time for him to follow in his countryman's footsteps. But right now has a big task in front of him in the longtime veteran. Every single season of CRL in the East, whether it was CRL Asia region or the CRL East region, lots of experience here for Sato.
It couldn't be more rookie to experience in a matchup, and it's gonna come down to, really, I think at this point, they're not as affected by that rookie. I think early on CRL days, it was a lot bigger deal. You never really expected the rookie to come out and give that underdog story. But as time goes on, we've seen rookies just win over and over again, that I think they've gained so much confidence over the months that it doesn't really matter at this point.
Well, Riker not happy about that Hog Rider hit. We'll see if he can mentally regroup here. One of the big shifts, though, Eric, you're talking about, of course, you know, it has been better for newer players lately, although you still take a look at that top 24, and a lot of names you'll know there on the high, even if you stay in the top 50 of the current CRL rankings. But a big shift is not playing on a stage in front of all your friends and with those cameras in your face.
Absolutely, and you could tell this month alone who's Lucas playing up against. A complete rookie to CRL who has never played a CRL match before, and he's running through everyone, including Molite.
Here we go, double elixir time and sudden death. 5 seconds into sudden death overtime, and at the moment, Sato putting Riker in a really, really uncomfortable position.
And it comes down to having the Hog Rider instead of the Hoggies. I think he's been able to defend just a little bit easier. The Hog Rider hits are just a lot more meaningful. But as I say that, so much damage comes in on the left, but it seems like it's a little too late.
Hog in, and Riker not going to finish it out.
Yeah,
we've seen this a lot today. I'm just a little bit shocked.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Sato, in my opinion, when you're going Hog Rider against Hoggies in this type of matchup, the Hog Rider is just so much more impactful and so much more difficult to stop, because you can have that Valk and deal with all those Hoggies pretty easily. But that Valk doesn't do anything to that Hog Rider. The cannon cart, yes, it's good, but it's such an expensive defense as well. And even then, it gives up hits, it gives up earthquake value, as you see there. Just a good matchup for him. And on top of that, very well played.
Very well played indeed. Valk goes high, and here you see the last exchange. That Hog Rider's getting one extra hit there at the end. And then you see Riker going to go ahead and EQ here. And I don't know if he was not able to get back to a mortar in time to pick this one up. That might be the case. And just a rough start here for Riker on this day number 2. Has to regroup quickly because he is on the chopping block.
Yeah, he definitely does. These are elimination matches, so there's no second life here. There's no, okay, I'll regroup after. You need to come out with your heavy hitter deck right now. Make sure you get this win on the board and then figure it out for game 3. But if I'm Rykart, I go with my absolute best deck for this game 2.
We'll see what he has in store. And again, staying in the same theme, Cycle comes out over the heavier deck.
Yeah, and it comes down to the fact that when me and you play, yes, Cycle decks don't always work out great. Trust me, my stream has seen it, your stream has seen it. But when these players play Cycle, they don't really make mistakes. So if you can always have the answers on defense and then be able to pressure whenever you want, it's generally going to win.
Game number 2 on its way. Sato, the South Korean, 81-13 personal best on ladder. Riker just slightly ahead of him, 8,268 copas for his personal best
and
finish.
Right behind them with 4,000 trophies is Rich and Eric, right? But
give me a few more than that.
right,
Jeez.
at season reset, we're at 4,000. We'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that. No, no one has to know.
Night Witch in for Riker, so probably going to be seen, I'm guessing, Mega Knight Graveyard here.
Yeah, most likely that. And I really like that deck, but it needs to get off to a hot start. Most of the times we see that deck win, it isn't in double and triple elixir, right? It gets a lot of early damage because once you get the right cycle, and there it is, he's very aggressive with it. You need to be very, very aggressive with this deck, because once they figure out the cycle, once they know exactly how they want to stop it, that's when you get into a lot of trouble.
But look at that. Mega Minion gets a bit of room there as the Snowball helps out with the Graveyard, and that is a massive lead for Riker early on. 1:10 passed and has that right-hand tower already down to 836.
And that's exactly how he needs it. Now he can play back. You have answers for everything. That Mega Knight here is going to be so key. You have Cage. All you have to do is make sure not to give up too much damage on that left side. He's not going to go same lane as you, because then he's going to give you a free counter push. And with that Graveyard, he just doesn't have enough answers. Yes, he has poison. Yes, he has roll delivery. But obviously, you're going to be spending a lot of elixir going in as well. And you won't just have enough to defend that. Both Witches, a Mega Knight, and a Graveyard. So you're always going to see him push on that left-hand side.
Poison on the left-hand lane, taking care of the Mother Witch as Zabbies and Flying Machine come in, but they don't get anywhere near that tower as the Mega Minion holds things up high. So still holding on 1456 to 836 as those Hoggies, plus some bats, do some not insignificant damage on the left-hand side, and Reichert just happy to cycle Snowball.
Yeah, and he forced out a delivery as well because that Mega Minion, he already had flashbacks from that right-hand tower. That Mega Minion was coming, getting tanked by, like you said, the Hoggies and the bats. So good counter. It was a good unintentional counter, I guess, from Reichert, which enables him to push from the back and get the cycle that he wants going. And here we go again. This is forcing out so much defense out of him. This is going to spawn a ton of bats, and this is more and more pressure. And a hit.
And some good fireball value, well, getting the, I guess we'll call it 7-ish elixir with the flying machine and 2 of the 3 zappies. So strong moment there for Reichert, who's in control, but of course, as time goes on, this deck gets thicker and thicker.
Yeah, I was just about to say, slowly, you got to watch out for that left-hand side. He's taking a lot of damage just on poison value. He's giving up a ton of poison value on all those Mother Witch, and he needs to start being careful, but not too careful, because it seems like this right-hand tower is almost gone.
Snowball in, and there you go. 227 King Tower activation, but at this stage,
yeah,
spell cycle should be sufficient. Has to be a little bit careful here as the piggies come in on the left-hand lane.
Yeah, but even then, he just has Cage, and yes, he could get some chip damage and he might get 1 or 2 hits here, but it's just not enough to hold him through a cycle. All he needs to do is Graveyard Fireball here. As soon as he has 4, he should go immediately in with that Fireball as well, and just, there you see it.
GG, well played. Game number 3 coming up here in just a moment, and there's a bit of a different expression out of Reichert. You saw the frustration in game number 1 and a big smile there in game number 2.
I love the cameras, and I love to see the reactions out of players, whether it's good or bad. You love the emotion that the Clash brings out of these players, and having the cameras is just a game changer for sure, especially when you see the emotion out of players that don't really show it as much.
Yeah, still have not seen anyone break a phone yet, but there's plenty of Clash Royale left in 2021 for us to see a chance on that one. And this seemed like it was pretty brutal, especially with the poison being in the matchup. You think, hey, I'm against Graveyard. Poison is nice, but then, of course, that Mother Witch just makes things into a nightmare.
Yeah, it definitely does. And on top of that, he understands the way to play this deck, and that is a big part of Clash. Like I said very early on, the way this deck is played is very aggressive on the first push. As soon as you see any room, you gotta go in, and that's exactly what he did. He Graveyard before the Mega Minion crossed the bridge, so that it was gonna be tanking for that Mega Minion, and that's what ended up doing, I think, over 1,200 damage just on that Mega Minion. Very well played, and once you have a lead with that type of deck, you just hold it, and last minute double, triple elixir, you Graveyard Fireball, and it's game over.
So speaking of Fireball, we did just see Reichert running Fireball and Mother Witch. We have seen neither of those two out of Sato yet. Do you expect something in that direction coming for game number 3?
I definitely do, man. You just have to use it. Fireball is the best spell in the game right now, in my opinion, along with Earthquake. But we both know Earthquake is no longer available after that game number 1, and we're getting bait again. We've seen a lot of bait this weekend.
Yeah, a ton of bait. We saw quite a bit yesterday, quite a bit today, and again, I really think I said this yesterday, I think a big part of it is that players are expecting to see far less Fire Spirit than they're seeing on ladder right now because of Goblin Drill not being available for competition.
Yeah, you're 100% right. That Fire Spirit is probably the best counter I've ever seen to log bait to these goblin barrels, right? That 1 elixir completely counters it with no damage on towers. So when you're seeing the meta shift away from that Fire Spirit, you're right, you should see more bait, and that's a big change we're gonna see next month when it is available.
So interesting variation on Ram Rider from Sato.
Yeah, a lot of pressure here though, and he needs to be really careful. That was worst case scenario for Sato there. 3 skellies, the Mother Witch targets exactly the one that the Bandit takes care of every time, and no Hoggies are spawned. But Reichert does have to be careful with those skellies on defense when there is a Mother Witch on the board.
First minute 20 passing, and Reichert does have the advantage at the moment, getting around fairly quickly with this variation of log bait.
Yeah, and I really like Sato's deck as well. It's a nice shift in what he has been showing us, and It is struggling a little bit here, but I do also want to see how Rijkaard will defend if this goes the distance. He needs to keep pressuring now. And what I love that I saw, I'm not sure who I saw it out of yesterday. I'm sorry, my memory is not helping me out right now. But they always played the Dark Goblin, and then they played the Goblin Barrel on opposite lanes when they realized that his opponent did not have log. He only had that Barb Barrel, and it was very, very smart. And I want to see the same thing out of Rijkaard here.
Log has to come out there after the pig tanks for the Ram Rider, and I wonder if Sato's recognizing this big elixir advantage he has right now.
Yeah, I don't think he has just yet. He's playing very, very slow, but I don't mind it. When you're in this situation, we can't fault them, right? If we were 1-1 in an elimination match, we'd probably play a little bit slow, a little bit safe. So it's better to be safe than sorry, especially in this situation. So I don't mind that at all.
And now Sato Pekka's up way in the back, an immediate Goblin Barrel to the left-hand lane. Dark Prince will mitigate a lot of that damage, but still 1342. Rijkaard adding to his lead as the Dark Goblin gets tanked for and does not get touched.
Yeah, that Dark Goblin went to town on that tower. Now he has liberty to go whichever lane he wants. This Ram Rider came out a little bit too soon. That's not going to take care of the Inferno Tower. It was just elixir granted there, and this will defend pretty easily as well. No Mother Witch ready on the right-hand side because it's on the left, and the Skellies do work onto that P.E.K.K.A.
P.E.K.K.A Does not connect, but Mother Witch does get 2 shots in, 1746 on that left-hand tower. The best spot here for Sato. But he, of course, goes and P.E.K.K.A's up for the right-hand side, not wanting to give value to that weaker side tower. 1270 on the left, 1395 on the right.
And I'm getting 2018, 2017 flashbacks here. So much Inferno Tower, so much Rocket, and so much Log Bait. This is...
Barb Barrel does go to work.
Yeah, no, that Inferno Tower does not pull, actually, so he needs to log on the left-hand side. Ultimately, he's going to defend anyway. That Knight does a ton of work as well. It is so tanky onto something like that P.E.K.K.A, and the use of his Skellies has been phenomenal. The Mother Witch has not been able to get any value on any of them, and they've done so much for that one elixir.
And trying to go Mother Witch instead of Barb Barrel, pays for it a bit with quite a lot of damage on that left-hand lane. Now sets up with the E-Wiz behind, does Sato. Rijkaard playing a very, very good game here so far, but of course triple elixir is where the danger zone will exist.
Yeah, it is where the danger zone will exist, but my biggest issue here is that he did try to defend with that Mother Witch, and you have Rocket on the other side, right? So that extra damage does mean a lot at this point, and as good as triple elixir is for a bridge spam deck, it also is really, really strong for someone that's running Rocket.
Final 30 seconds, significant lead here for Rijkaard. 973 to 1592. Sato's gonna have to make a choice here. And never mind, 795. That right-hand lane even worse. And the Barb Barrel doesn't get there in time. Oh my word. Barb Barrel a half step behind, and that's got to be the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, that has to be game over. He's out of cycle again. Log on to tower. He does have Rocket, so yes, this is game over. And Rijkaard bringing it back. So today we see, and he's shouting out his friend on camera. What a good friend, right? I never got a shout out. Hey Lucas, if you want, if you get to the finals, you can shout me out, man.
I'm pretty sure I've been seeing some people saying predicting Matthew for CRL World Champion this year on Twitter. So I guess even right now, his friend Rijkaard jumping on the Matthew train. So good luck there, man. But a great performance there for Rijkaard. Really, really clean play here in Game 3.
Yeah, that was beautiful play. And I guess today goes to show you that winning game 1 doesn't really mean all that much. You got to close it out, and Rijkaard really played very calm even when he was down in the after the first game. I think it shows a lot of it's not experience, but it shows that he has what it takes, right, to get there, because that's what you see out of the best players. We've talked about it from Morden over and over again. Whenever he gets in these situations, whenever he's down, he seems just as calm as if he were winning.
Yeah, very, very calm indeed. And maybe that's a trait of some of the German players all training together and working together for their team and some of our international competitions. And once more, man, it is. I don't think we have seen the cycle deck lose yet today.
Yeah, we haven't, and it goes to show that these players play at such a high level that you don't expect mistakes out of them, and that's why cycle decks are so strong. That's why we enjoy watching them so much, right? Whenever you see someone play Lava against some of these players, and they're matchups that they should lose, they don't end up losing them just because that cycle deck does defend well as long as there are no mistakes. And I have not seen mistakes out of anyone today. People came dialed in.
Very, very clean gameplay, and in game number 1, no exception. Game number 2, as we move on, this is where things began to shift. The poison. You know, you're sitting here, you're looking going, poison, okay, that's at least one good shutdown, but I don't think we ever saw poison play defensively against those graveyards.
No, because he kept baiting it out with the Mother Witch on the back left-hand side. He was getting chip damage off the poison. It was his only real way of getting onto tower, and Riker was very smart with it. He knew that he could bait out that poison every time because in his eyes, right, in Sato's eyes, it's like, okay, he's giving me chip damage, I'm bringing it down. It was at 1,900, now it's at 1,200. I have a chance. Oh, wait, he has graveyard. So now what do I do? Very well played out of Riker.
So that was game number 2. On to game number 3, and this was, again, weird things that you're not feel like you're seeing much of. Log bait has been huge all weekend and came out very, very nicely for Riker in this one.
And this is what duels format is all about. This is why I love it. You have to play the cards that are eliminated. You have to see, okay, this is what I'm expecting. And we see a lot of game 3s with Inferno Towers for that specific reason. It seems like they know what's coming, and I love to see the evolution of players in this format.
So a very interesting top 4 we have here as Riker moves on. We have 2 repeat players in the top 4, and Lucas up at the upper bracket final, and of course Viper at the bottom bracket final. Riker and Minimao both still in the mix though, so a lot of opportunities here for a new player to jump in, and of course Lucas hoping to go through all of them and be a repeat back-to-back champion. Would not mind another 20k.
Yeah, I don't think he would mind another 20k. And look, I know no one asked me, and it's the public, but I'm going to predict Lucas is going to go back-to-back. And I hope he does, not because I want him to win more than anyone else. You saw his tweets, right? You saw the I'm playing for my family. They're all going through the COVID right now, the COVID situation. So, like, there's a little bit extra in him for wanting to win this. And the way he's playing, look, if there's one person that can stop him, it's Mao. But if he gets past Mao, I don't see anyone beating him.
Well, only one way to find out, Eric, and that's to go to our upper bracket final. But you and I aren't going to be casting it. Let's go ahead and say goodbye and toss it over to our good friends, Andrew and Josh.
Josh, what's up, my man? AC, you and I get to come out for the upper bracket. Rich and Eric worked through those 2 elimination games. Fantastic stuff there. A lot of money given away. And talking about money, let's go up to the top here. Mao and Lucas, how you feeling about this game? We got to go predictions first before we go to the crowd.
Okay, so predictions-wise, look, Minimao, he's been playing phenomenally. He is definitely probably the best rookie that we've seen. When it's their first appearance, I've been so impressed. But your opponent, like, you can't vote against Lucas. Unfortunately, I really want to do this crazy thing where I say it's going to be Mao and everybody's going to hype me up, and I just can't. I'm saying it's Lucas.
Well, color me crazy. You heard me at the top of the show. Call Mao. I always love an underdog, man, but it does feel really, really hard to bet against Lucas right now, especially with what Eric just mentioned, playing for not only himself, but for his family. Let's talk about these 2 guys and their cycle. Both of them cycle masters. We saw yesterday Mao going to minor control with poison, something we don't see a lot at this level. Lucas on the other side of it. We can talk about that Expo game, but we know him as one of the best cycle players in the world. Do you think it's going to be hot and heavy at all, or is it just going to be fast-paced action through these 3 games?
I think Lucas is probably going to go traditional with what he does. You know, it's going to be cycle. He's going to think that he can outplay anybody in the world. He believes he's the best player right now.
I gotta cut you off really quick, Josh. I'm so sorry. And yes, I did too. But apparently you are the underdog here, and so is Lucas. 67% to the Bolivian, 33% to the Brazilian, our former monthly champion. And I'll let you finish your thoughts now, because Lucas, he has been lights out for 2 months in a row now.
Yeah, so apparently everybody's thought process is, you know, he's a newcomer. He's trying to steal the show, and you know, no one knows his decks. So maybe he can run something. We saw him run P.E.K.K.A. It was Goblins, Bandit, Miner, Poison. It was just a brilliant deck choice from him. So I like that people are hyping him up, I gotta say I'm surprised though.
I am too. I'm really shocked to see him. He is the favorite. You see there, bottom of the screen, Mini Mao, Lucas at the top here. Lucas, our former monthly champion. And of course, Mini Mao, the newcomer who was very, very clean and very composed yesterday. I think that was the thing that kind of shocked all of us, was the composure that he had in those high pressure moments in triple elixir with fast cycle decks, really unforgiving decks. And he was basically perfect in regards to no mistakes in defense.
Yeah, no mistakes. He reset when he needed to. He pressured when he needed to. I mean, it was gorgeous, start to finish.
So we'll see now if the pressure starts to get to Mini Mao. $6,000 on the line for this match. That's the minimum you can walk away with here, as both these guys are still in that upper bracket, but a lot easier to get to those finals if you stay undefeated here at the top. And looks like Mao, bottom of your screen, going to go for a Ram Rider, which Rich and Eric were talking a lot about today. How you feel about Ram Rider in our CRL meta, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good. It's one of those cards that matches up well against a lot of different decks because, you know, you go against Loon and then you use the Ram Rider for defense and then you get those counter pushes. You go against Hog and yes, it's difficult to defend the Firecrackers, but it gives you an opportunity to win when you try and pressure with Hog and then you have that nice little counter attack with the defensive Ram Rider. Again, there's so many different ways to do it, and wow, beautiful play right there.
Heads up snowball, man. Gets the bandit dash on tower. Now gonna have to deal with a little bit of defense here. Ram Rider comes back down, soaks up that bandit dash, maybe a half second late is Mini Mao. And now you can see a little tilt of the head. He knows he's gonna have to deal with quite a counter push. 6 elixir in the tank to do it.
Yeah, this is a really weird... I really like the deck for Mao, and the Fisherman is going to be getting a ton of value. He just has to be playing it correctly. MK, though, instead of P.E.K.K.A, which is going to make the matchup quite a bit harder, but still not impossible. The Fisherman needs to be getting a ton of value every single time it gets played.
Mega Knight evaporates there with the charge and the dash, and you know, Rich and Eric were talking about how it could be nice to have a Mega Knight in that one matchup, but in this specific matchup, maybe wishing it was the P.E.K.K.A instead. P.E.K.K.A gonna turn that Mega Knight into butter. That big mama swing, and the Ram Rider connects. 1648 to 1646. A lot coming down the lane here for Lucas.
Yeah, having to put the Mother Witch on top. The Bandit is going to be eating the tower alive. And yes, he's going to defend it, but I mean, the way to win these kind of matchups is by, you know, trying to win the bridge battles, and he was just placing too many things at the bridge, allowing him to win, allowing Lucas to win the bridge battle without even using the P.E.K.K.A in order to stop it. Fisherman isn't going to be enough, and this is going to be game.
Yeah, you see there the shake of the head from Mao. P.E.K.K.A up high, nothing to stop the Ram Rider. She gets right on through to tower, and Lucas making it look easy in his first game out. Mao's deck, very, very untraditional, out of the meta. A lot of what we saw out of him yesterday. Do you think that worked out in his favor and it was just a bad matchup? Or do you think maybe he's trying to get a little bit too clever with his decksmanship?
You know, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, I mean, I think it really comes down to the bridge battle that I was talking about a little bit earlier. He played solid defense, but it was just one point in time where there was 3 troops on his lane, 3 troops on Lucas's lane, and it just, none of his troops were able to kill off the other troops, and it was just too easy for Lucas to overwhelm at that point. He had to play smarter, he had to play a little bit more patient, and you just can't make any mistakes when you're running MK versus a P.E.K.K.A deck.
Yeah, and thanks to the booth for that great pull as Josh was talking through the moment. That was exactly what we were talking about here in the booth. And you really used the word that I want to capitalize on, which was just patience. That's really all it was. Lucas, he's been here so many times before, our former champion. He let the game come to him. And while Mao did some fancy, flashy stuff, we've talked a lot about the best CR players in the world aren't really that flashy until they win the game. Ruben, Javi, those are 2 of my favorites in regards to that, but that's exactly what Lucas did here. He kept seeing Mao overcommit at the bridge, and he finally just was like, all right, man, you want to keep doing that? I'm going to punish you for it. And as you said, that bandit came in, didn't even have to use the P.E.K.K.A to win a massive bridge battle. Feels like experience was the big factor in game 1, AC.
Yeah, I mean, experience, it was just too much for him. He couldn't overtake that, and that's the reason why everybody is so confident in Lucas right now, because, I mean, he has weaknesses, but there aren't many. I mean, everything that was a knock on him previously. It's just not a knock. He doesn't get nervous. He's playing, he's playing for his family. He wants this, and he wants to get the first back-to-back monthly championship.
Yeah, that's a huge crown to wear, the back-to-back. We haven't had it yet. We've had return champions come in, but just not able to close it out once again, as Mohamed Light has been our best option for that. I believe Line was as well, but Lucas X Gamer now on the best run of our former champions. And Mao, a guy that looked like he was unstoppable yesterday, had a lot of struggles in game number 1.
Yeah, not what we were expecting, really. But game number 2, and the thing we talked about, especially yesterday, was his composure. So if there's anybody to make a mistake like that, anybody to have a matchup like that and lose it, it's going to be him to be able to bounce back. And so it's going to be interesting to see which deck he uses when he's trying to feel comfortable in this game number 2.
So here we go. Prince set up in the back. Maybe something going to get dropped up high to soak up that charge, unless he gets to the cage in time. Looks like he will. Nice timing there for Mao. Lightning comes in. Valkyrie plus Cannon Cart. That's a decent counter push coming down the lane.
Yeah, and he's likely going to be running Graveyard with this. I like the Baby Dragon up top. It's going to allow him to take that out pretty quickly, especially when you have Scalers and Cycled. Solid defense from Lucas, and you have to be careful with that, because obviously when you're getting aggressive and playing Lightning as your 5th card, you got to be worried about the counter pushes. He cleaned that up nicely, though.
Top of your screen, we're seeing some pretty heavy stuff up there. Josh, you think we end up going to Electro Giant with the cards surrounding it?
Yeah, I think we have to look at, I forgot what it was. I think it was yesterday's. I forgot the 2 players, but someone used an E-Giant Magic Archer deck, and there we go. We do see the E-Giant. And the Magic Archer, I didn't think it had, I didn't think it was a good card with E-Giant, but it worked out wonderfully. They were able to get consistent damage on top of the tower, and right here, he looks like this is the right deck for him, as long as he defends this Graveyard.
Yeah, so defending the Graveyard is going to be one task for Lucas. On the other side of it, getting this Electro Giant plus Prince push off the board. Very, very tough here. We're going to go to a 2-tower game. Josh, your expertise off, just straight off the hip. Who is in a better spot in a 2-tower game? Usually Graveyard struggles quite a bit.
Yeah, Graveyard struggles. He's never going to be Cannon Cart in the pocket, which is definitely going to be a problem. And this damage to the Baby Dragon is way more than he should be giving up right there. But I will say, I'm going to say E-Giant definitely has the matchup when it's a 2-tower game, but he can definitely do something with these Cannon Carts.
Now almost getting a connection there, and it was Sato yesterday who was the man to use the Magic Archer lineups, and that really worked out well for him. And Lucas probably not going to have as much luck now as he's going for hyper-aggressive pushes in the pocket, because he knows there are no real big buildings to stop him, especially if there's not damage on that Cannon Cart. Nice lineup there, just as I'm talking about it.
Yeah, getting the tower all the way down to 1044. It's just so difficult for him to set up the correct push, because when you have Prince as your DPS, you take out the Musketeers in 2 shots. You take out the Cannon Carts quickly. You get the charge on top of the Valk, and so you don't have those tanks that are able to tank for the Graveyard for a very long time. So you have to try and get around that by getting, solid counter pushes. But when you try and do that with Musketeer, Mega Minion, Valk, Cannon Cart, the Lightning gets extraordinary value every time. And so it's so difficult for him to set up that right push.
And as you're talking about that, a Lightning does come down on top of a Valkyrie and Musketeer, and that's the smart thing to do here for Lucas. He has a substantial lead, and, as long as he's getting just a little bit of value out of those Lightnings, as you were just mentioning, AC, that's really all he needs to do. He doesn't need to worry about tower damage. He just needs to make sure he doesn't get overwhelmed. And there it is once again, able to connect to the Princess Tower on top of it. Little insult to injury, little cherry on top. 780 to 2005. And the man who was somehow the underdog coming into this seems to make this set look very, very easy against our rookie.
Yeah. It was just perfect gameplay, perfect decks, perfect everything, really. And, it's not game over just yet, but getting the tower down to 558 right there, and a nice little NATO as well. There's just not much he can do. It's just too difficult to get that second tower when you give up the first one that early on into the game.
20 seconds. We go Cannon Cart plus Graveyard. A very cheeky push, aggressive push here, but that's really all Mao had left in the tank. Lucas was ready for it. Goblin Cage up high. You see the fist pump there for the Brazilian, staying perfect through 3 sets in taking down Mini Mao, who was excellent against Reichert, who was phenomenal against Mohamed Light, and now he's going to have to go down into that elimination bracket and await the winner of Viper Reichert, who Mao did 2-0 earlier in this weekend, but wow, tough stuff there running into our former champion. What was the great separator between these two? Why did it look so easy for Lucas?
You know, I love the deck choices from Lucas. I really don't know what set him apart from everybody else. The P.E.K.K.A versus MK, he played that really strongly. He did everything that he needed to do in that matchup. And then game number 2, you have to be careful. I feel like Graveyard going against Lucas, especially when there's so many things available to him. I mean, Lucas, game number 1, he used Poison and Snowball and P.E.K.K.A. So he has pretty much every cycle deck available to him in his arsenal. And so to use a Graveyard deck where you know he could go bait, you know he can do all sorts of things, that's a risky play. And we saw in game number 2 that it wasn't the correct decision from him.
Yeah, Lucas was just able to get that nice E-Giant push in for the trade early on. I think that was a moment of understanding the macro over the micro. Lucas knew he wasn't really going to be able to defend that Graveyard and get a good enough push in. And we all know how hard it is to get an Electro Giant on tower late game if your opponent has proper responses, which Mini Mao did, which I think is why we saw that early tower trade. And then from there on out, it was all downhill for Mini Mao, or all uphill for Lucas, whatever you want to call it. And here we go. Deck number 1, the matchups. We talked about it as it was happening. Mega Knight against P.E.K.K.A. Really, really tough stuff there. But that wasn't really the it factor for Lucas. It was really more about timing and bandits, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, Lucas, he was winning bridge battles without even using P.E.K.K.A. He was patient. And I feel like Mao had a missed opportunity. He just wasn't using the Fisherman to its fullest potential. I only saw him place it down once or twice, and once it was just directly on top of the troops because there was just so much going down the field. That matchup is so based around trying to, counterattack and get the pressure when he does an errant P.E.K.K.A. or anything, and he just never had that opportunity, and that's why he lost game number 1.
Yeah, the Fisherman's such a tough card. When he's not really able to find his place in a specific matchup, he ends up just being almost a dead card in your hand because you never want to help your opponent get closer to your Princess Tower. And game number 2 is what we just walked away from. A nice early aggressive Graveyard from Mao is responded to by Lucas's aggressive Prince Electro Giant NATO push, tower for tower. And then it was all the Brazilian from there on out.
Yeah, you talked about it. I mean, it is so difficult to get past these defensive decks. Graveyard really doesn't have a bad matchup in this. It has everything to do with Lucas just getting the tower early on. I mean, you have so many strong responses. You have the cannon card. So even if you get the lightning value on it, it's still going to be able to pull the E-Giant. You have the Goblin Cage. You have the Musketeer. You can spread every troop out, but it doesn't matter if you get too aggressive and go in with an early Graveyard. So really, really strong play from Lucas. I mean, that is, just perfect gameplay from him to go in that early.
And I think this is where we really saw the experience kind of take hold for Lucas. I think exactly what you're talking about there. If Mao recognized that the Graveyard deck he was running was just going to dominate and double because he had so much control over that Electro Giant, maybe we'd be seeing something a bit different. Maybe we'd be going to game number 3. But instead, Mini Mao going to be our 13th matchup of the weekend as he sits back and waits for the rematch between Viper and Reichert. Reichert 2-1s Viper in our second matchup of the entire weekend, as you see there in the top left-hand side of your screen. It sends Viper down to the elimination bracket where he has to beat not only a former champion, but also the guy that's been to the monthly finals the most, Mohamed Light and Samuel Basoto, respectively. And now he's back up against the German again. What did you like out of the two gentlemen that we saw earlier today? Reichert and Viper both played some clean Clash Royale to start off our Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing that I want to touch on is Viper's game plan was unbelievably solid. Game number 1, I forgot what he used, but game number 2 and game number 3, he had Hog available to him. And did he play it? No, he never played Hog. And you saw that the game plan against him was to prepare for that. In game number 3, they used P.E.K.K.A, Earthquake, Arrows, and that's not a real deck. Like, you should never be running that, but you only run it against Viper because you know he has Hog available to him. And so as long as he has a game plan set that's at least somewhat similar to that, I could see him 2-0ing. I was so impressed with how he set up his set number 1.
Yeah, it was a bit different from what we saw out of him yesterday. And while he played very well yesterday, he still seemed to be playing a little over aggressive, maybe a little uncomfortable. And that was one of the things Eric kept highlighting earlier on today, was it looks like he's playing his game now. Reichert on the other side of it, the German now really making a name for himself. You know Reichert, I know Reichert. A lot of people that have been in the pro scene for a long time have known that name. But now it seems like 2021, he's starting to be able to put things together, not only being on our leaderboard, but getting here into the top 8 and having a pretty solid run. Really nice performance earlier on this morning. What did you like that you saw out of the German that maybe will match up well against the Frenchman?
Well, I really liked his deck choices. I mean, both players were just so solid with how they chose decks. He was able to get some good matchups at the end, and it was things that he hasn't been running before. So, I mean, I think that's just so important. We saw, patience come from him as well. I liked what I saw from both of them, and I think this is going to be one of the better losers or lower bracket games we might have ever seen.
I couldn't agree more. There's so much talent in this elimination side of the bracket. Both of these gentlemen have found bait at least once this weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that again here in this set. Josh, how you feeling about bait? I know that Eric and Rich talked about it a little bit, but it does feel kind of like an X factor late in these sets.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look at Sato versus Reichert, Sato used Fire Spirit in game number 2, and so it opened up that for game number 3 for him, and it was just a really good game plan. And so, especially if you're wary of what your opponents have used, if they don't have Royal Delivery, no Fire Spirit, no Log, like game number 3 and even game number 2 is that is going to match up well against a good majority of the decks that your opponent can possibly use. The only thing I don't like seeing is it used in game number 1, but as we see right here from both players, Bait would have actually matched up well against both of them so far.
So we saw this yesterday. We saw a bit of the Ice Wizard plus Baby Dragon plus Goblin Cage, and I believe we saw a Bomber with it yesterday, and it was actually not very effective, just not enough single target DPS, and that was actually out of Sato, whereas Samuel was the one who was using the Magic Archer, I believe. But do we believe we're going to be seeing Electro Giant here out of Viper?
Yeah, I mean, I'd prefer that over Graveyard. And nice little King Tower activation right there. That's going to be very valuable as the game goes on. And yeah, I mean, I just don't think you have the DPS necessary. The Dark Prince isn't as valuable on defense as Valk. And then you're also not getting enough pressure when you have to. I mean, you see Ice Wizards at the bridge, and sometimes with these kind of decks, and that's never what you want to see when you're trying to make the right push. I think it can be a good deck, but I mean, if you don't get a good matchup, the problem with that deck is if you don't get a good matchup, it's very hard to outplay.
So Viper using that Tornado to pull in the defense here of Reichert. Baby Dragon Belch connects on that right-hand side as a Bandit comes down to a Goblin Cage. P.E.K.K.A. finally out, and there is the Electro Giant. Hyper-aggressive, usually not played at the bridge, but when that Big Mama P.E.K.K.A. is out of cycle, we see a nice Ram Rider as a response to really slow down that Electro Giant.
Right, and he's able to get the lightning on top as well, so he has to be careful about putting the P.E.K.K.A. in the back. Obviously, not going to be a problem when you have that many responses and you respond that way, but you're giving up a lot of lightning damage. You can potentially give up some damage with the E-Giant Splash, but this counter push might be able to get the tower down pretty low.
Really nice recognition there by Reichert of what was available for Viper, knowing the cage was out of cycle, knowing that the Tornado was not quite there yet. Dark Prince has to come down, then the NATO, 1371 to 1669. And it feels like it'll be very tough to get a misplayed or misplaced P.E.K.K.A. out of Reichert at this point.
Right, he can set up in the back. He has so many different ways because, we need to see his last card, but especially if it's lightning, he's not going to have a problem with taking out the tower using spells. So it's going to be interesting to see how he wants to play the rest of this game. If he wants to, try and play super slow and do, there's just so many opportunities for him to play this game correctly.
So easy defense once again here for Viper, using that Tornado to help out at the river. And it looked like it was going to get a little dicey for a second, but still very clean there with the Ice Wiz plus Cage. There's the E-Giant met by the P.E.K.K.A. P.E.K.K.A. though, with that NATO, turns around, and now she's the slow one.
Yeah, great NATO right there, getting it to lock onto the Ice Wizard. You get 400 damage, and you didn't use Lightning. But I also like the timing of what he did, because when he does this in double elixir, you know, if it's going to remain with double elixir for a while, that's going to be difficult for him to be able to defend. But when you use it with 5 seconds left going into triple elixir, then you get that boost, and then it doesn't really matter that you overextend it like that. I really like how he set up that push, especially with the timing that he did that in.
Yeah, I love the call there, Josh. That was absolutely brilliant, because exactly what you were talking about. The Lightning comes in perfectly in time with that triple elixir. He's able to defend the right-hand side without taking a lick of damage. A little bit different this time around, though. Royal Ghost on the tower. P.E.K.K.A taking for it. Lightning comes in on the right-hand side. 10-12 to 996. Now we see Viper getting hyper-aggressive with this Ram Rider defensively out for Riker.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be just a Lightning battle. Who's going to get the most damage right here? And, I mean, Lightning plus Snowball should be able, but I think the Lightning plus NATO might be enough. This is going to be close.
Oh, man, 700, 684, nothing there in time. And Viper ends up losing game number 1 by 16 HP. Riker on fire today.
Yeah, I mean, I love how he set it up. He must have known that he was going to be able to get it correctly. I mean, that is so close. That is just a wild way to finish.
It's so hard to call the game in those final moments, because you don't know if they're going to get back around in time. You don't know if the spells are even going to tick in time. NATO not there for Viper to get a little bit more chip damage on that tower, which would have been enough. That does do more than 16 damage. But it was this early on. It felt like this nice Electro Giant push, the Lightning combination, and then a good defense out of Viper. It felt like he was in good control, but we both know as this game was going to go on with that Electro Wizard, with the P.E.K.K.A, and with the Ram Rider, it was going to be very, very difficult to get the Electro Giant on tower again for Viper.
Yeah, and I mean, the way he was setting up his pushes, you know, cycling the P.E.K.K.A, knowing that you can sort of defend with the Ram Rider, I mean, he got kind of caught with that, but he was able to get a nice amount of damage with his own Ram Rider. And then, yeah, it was just solid damage overall. He was able to recover, and yeah, I mean, that was one of the closer games I've seen.
There was a couple moments in the game earlier on where Viper had to use a tornado, or he chose to use the tornado defensively to pull units up close. And while it felt like most of them were probably the correct decision, I'm wondering if there was 1 or 2 tornadoes in there in those defenses that was maybe a bit over aggressive. Maybe he could have just relied on the 4 or 3 elixir defense that he already had set up. And then you get that little bit more chip damage on the tower. And obviously hindsight's 2020, but did you see that at all, or did you love all those NATO defensive plays out of Viper early on?
See, it's hard to come after Viper when he's using a card like NATO, because, you know, we know he's one of the greatest in the world, especially with that Hog XC NATO that no one else can play, because he's the only one who uses NATO in that fashion. But I think it more comes down to the fact that it's the DPS that is just completely lacking. You only have Dark Prince plus Ice Wiz plus Baby Dragon, and while those are phenomenal with NATO, if you don't have NATO, and you know, that's still like 14 or 13 elixir that you're spending in order to defend a push, especially if, you know, 2 lanes are coming down the, you know, 2 pushes are coming down the lane. It just puts him in such bad positions, which is the reason why I don't usually like decks like that.
And that's exactly what you and I were kind of highlighting at the top of that game. I was trying to put it into words, but Samuel Basoto and Sato going head-to-head with Electro Giant yesterday, that Magic Archer piercing damage was huge, but the other part of it was just that there was not a lot of single-target DPS coming out of his opponent. And now we're seeing something that is very, very standard, if you will, in CRL 2021, at least starting here in July, which is bait coupled with Inferno Tower. It feels like we're going back in time, man.
Yeah, I really like the Inferno Tower in this deck, and I mean, even when Inferno Tower wasn't a good card, there was one deck that you could fit Inferno Tower with, and it's these kind of weird, non-traditional bait decks, because, you know, you're applying so much pressure. You have Skellies, you have Fire Spirit, and especially a Fire Spirit that now does an incredible amount of damage for just 1 elixir. I really like how this deck is set up. It allows you to completely outplay your opponents all the time. Oh, you spent 2 elixir in the left lane? Let me go 10 elixir in the right lane. You have to over defend, then, you know, you get that reset, and all of a sudden you're up 1,000 HP, and you have the elixir advantage with the bait decks. I love how this deck is set up.
Yeah, already Elixir advantage showing here as Viper cycles that Valkyrie in the back. Gonna take a Baby Dragon Belch, get a log out to take care of the Goblin Brawler plus some Skellies. Yep, there they are, just to make sure he doesn't take a hit. And really, really nice use of his cycle there and going back and forth, left and right, which is exactly what you want to do when playing these bait decks, especially when you have this much of a hold on the cycle. You look at how much of an advantage Viper has and able to get all the way back around as quickly as he does. It's going to be really difficult to keep up with this late game, but Reichert so far doing a good job with his 3 options.
Yeah, you have to be careful though, and this is one of those matchups where, like, even if you're playing what's considered like a perfect gameplay, I mean, we see the bar barrels coming out, we see the fireball, but you have to be careful about that, because if you're within, 500 HP when triple elixir comes, boom, that's 3 rockets just like that, and you've already lost. So it's weird, but sometimes what looks to be like a phenomenal defense actually isn't. If you're overspending and you're not getting, your own offensive pushes, he has to be careful about that. I love how he's defended so far, but he has to be very, very careful.
Yeah, that's a really solid point that you bring up there, Josh, talking about how comfortable Viper can be just keeping up being hyper aggressive as long as Reichert keeps spending just a little bit more than he wants, because then we know Viper can just go, cool, rocket cycle to end this game. And right now we are seeing the first bit of offense from Reichert, and it looks like he's going to get a tower connection. That is a huge mega minion swing, couple skeletons in the back, 1187 to 1876. Now going to need more than just a couple rockets. He's going to need some goblins to get some stabs on that tower as well.
Yeah, I really don't like how aggressive he got with a rocket. The entire thought process is, if you're within 500 HP as triple elixir goes, that's when you're fine. Like, that's when you don't really have a problem trying to defend. But when it's still double elixir and you're going to defend in the way he does, he has Valk. He has so many different ways to defend fairly easily. And right now he's just putting himself in positions where it's difficult for him to defend and, get some tower damage himself.
This is more of the Viper that I think we saw yesterday as the Viper that we saw earlier today, just playing a little bit more aggressive than I think is what you want to do. But you can see 2 rockets already in, a barrel coming down, 1136 to 939. And it's going to be all about who can play better defense and who can turn that offense into a little bit, or that defense do a little bit of offense here in this final 25 seconds.
I know it's a simple thing, but the fact that he did the 1 regular goblin barrel and he was able to recognize that and defend it perfectly and not miss any goblins is fairly impressive right there. Didn't panic. He's just been looking, and I mean, this is not a good matchup for him. And he played this beautifully. That is picture-perfect gameplay from Graveyard player.
That was phenomenal stuff. You see the big smile there out of Reichert, who knows now the least that he can walk away with is $6,000. Great stuff out of him. Reichert moving on forward. He will be playing up against Mao, who just got brought down to the elimination bracket. Wow, great stuff there, but really just in control of Viper's gameplay the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be careful about utilizing the fireball on defense against the goblin barrels, and he didn't, he tried to get to double elixir where it wasn't a problem for him, and he was actually able to do it. That is a very difficult task when you have all this pressure. He's consistently going opposite lane pressure, so you're never able to stack or do anything like that. I mean, Viper was trying to do, what you're supposed to do as the log bait player. It just wasn't enough because of just stellar defense from Reichert.
Yeah, stellar defense from Reichert that made Viper feel that pressure to get more aggressive than he needed to. You called it. We saw it. Those rockets started flying, and as soon as those rockets started coming out with over a minute left of gameplay, Reichert started to punish him over and over and over with massive pileups at the bridge. I mean, what are you going to do with that deck? You don't have the Princess for Splash. Your rocket's gone. Really tough stuff for the Inferno Tower to focus on all those units, but we'll get there in just 1 second. Let's talk about game number 1 first here. Was this all matchup, or was this more gameplay?
I mean, it's hard to yeah. I think this was just a really solid job. I think he has to be careful about putting the P.E.K.K.A.s in the back, because especially when you're a player like Viper, who knows how to NATO correctly, he pulls the P.E.K.K.A. up so that way it goes to the Ice Wiz, and then, he was able to adjust to that. But yeah, you just have to be careful with that. Viper, I think, did what he could, but I think it comes down to that's just not the optimal way to set up an E-Giant deck. You just don't have the DPS that you need.
Yeah, he needed so much more DPS. You can see on the other side of it, Reichert having a lot of control and a ton of single target DPS. Now, when you talk about matchup, Viper looked like he was in a phenomenal position. Looked like this was going to be easy stuff. Inferno Tower, they were going to sizzle through all of those units that Reichert had to bring to play. But it was all about the patience, the well-timed graveyard, and then some incredible, stellar defense from the German.
Yeah, I mean, he was doing everything right. I saw him protect his knights with goblin cages, so that way the Inferno Tower wasn't going to lock onto it right away. I mean, it was exactly what you're looking for. And then I think it even more so than that, it comes down to a huge mistake from Viper. You can't rocket that early. I mean, we saw him having to catch up in triple elixir where he was down to elixir, or where his opponent had played a card and he was only at 7-8 elixir, and he was still having to rocket because he was already down 800 HP. You just can't put yourself in those positions, especially with a matchup like this one.
Whereas if he just played a little bit more patient for about a half minute longer, then he could have started cycling those rockets more comfortably. He could have dealt with the rockets at the bridge, dropping them right in on those big pileups, since he did have a good, like, you know, he was in a pretty good spot defensively for a long time until he started to overspend. So let's take a look at our bracket as Reichert moves forward and Viper walks away with $4,000. Another monthly finals appearance, but not able to claim that gold. Now we go to Mao and Reichert. The winner of that will face off against Lucas X Gamer with 2 lives to give. And right now, Josh, it really does feel like he's going to be our first repeat champion. We saw what he did to Mao, who looked unstoppable yesterday. Now, Lucas X Gamer back on top. He's dialed in. He's beaten the best of the weekend. Is there anyone that can actually stop him?
I really don't think so. I don't think it's going to go to a second set with him in the winner's bracket. I think he's just too solid. His game plan is too good. He's using Expo when no one else is willing to. I mean, there's just no reason to think that he can't do it.
Yeah, man, that Expo deck, some crazy stuff
there.
But also
Fireball log deck, excuse me. That was...
yeah, that's actually... There was only 7 cards in that deck. And speaking of decks, speaking of great players, we do have $36,000 more to give away over the next few matches. But first, or I should say next up, let's take a look at one of the best players in Clash Royale at Tribe Wallace. A little bit of a player profile on this young man.
Wallace, the MVP of the day. I don't care what anyone else does.
Hi, I'm Wallace from Brazil. Originally played Clash of Clans when Clash Royale got released, but then I got addicted right away.
He's got the freeze.
Played defensively.
He's got the freeze.
Oh
that
my
bomb's not
gosh.
gonna go off in time.
Oh my
Pain
gosh.
Gaming. Pain Gaming's gonna win.
Oh
Pain Gaming
my word! Pain Gaming holds on by a hair and goes through to the semifinals on 22 HP.
Wallace, the MVP of the day. I don't care what anyone else does.
Right now, my favorite card to play is the Hog Rider. Because if it's in a lot of cycle decks, I like to play a lot of cycle decks. And for me, the best meta was the Hunter with the Bomb Tower meta, because both were really strong cards and were really good together. The June monthly final was very exciting for me because it was the first time that I passed the top 8. And 4 Brazilians passed too, and I think it was the first time them passing, so I was really proud for everyone.
I hope you're ready to samba, because we have a half Brazilian monthly final here in Clash Royale League.
One of my favorite competitions was the CRL teams, but due to COVID, we had to stay home. But our team was really strong and we got top 4 in the world. This was my first entry in the CRL pro scene, so not many people knew me.
I could not be happier for Wallace than I am right now, as you said. And look at him. He's all smiles because, like you said, it's the most important day at Clash Royale he's ever played in his life.
And I was really happy to demonstrate my level and my skills.
And now Wallace, 2 up, 2 down, 1 away from another potential superstar King of the Hill sweep. What I do know is that Wallace is playing the best Clash Royale of his life if you extend what he did in that Space Station Gaming match to now.
This year I'm really excited to play versus Mohamed Light and Mini. Mohamed Light is always on the top of the leaderboard. I think both are really strong players. For anyone who wants to become a pro player, I think you have to dedicate a lot, you have to practice, and never give up because there's a spot for everyone on the top.
Taking a look at Wallace, who was long apart. There we go. Now I'm on screen. Taking a look at Wallace, who was a long top-tier player in the semi-pro scene and made a fantastic transition to the pros. And, of course, that iconic moment, clutching things up for Pain Gaming at World Finals against the former champions in Nova. And, Andrew, we have another situation here, very similar. 2 semi-pros, one of which will go to the grand final against a seasoned veteran. Riker and Mao both have shown they have what it takes to get to this point. The question is, who will go on and fight for that final 20K?
That's a really, really good question, because either way, whoever it's going to be has quite the task ahead of them. Lucas X Gamer has been so clean now for 2 months. It was just a month ago on the 20th, I believe, of June, where he was able to hoist that 20K and the monthly championship. And now Reichert and Mao, who have both been sent down the elimination bracket, I have to say today, Rich, Reichert has looked incredible. I have loved what the German has done. I've loved the decks. You heard me and Josh talking a lot about it. And I love the understanding and the patience that he had of the macro that is Clash Royale. It really felt like he was playing like a seasoned veteran.
Well, he has a lot of experience playing with top players. Remember, his teammates who he trains with, representing his nation of Germany, are 2 of the best in the business, in Morten and Sam. And then not to mention Faust over there in Germany as well. He held up the sign for Matthew. There's a nasty German contingent there. And as we've said before here on the show, iron sharpens iron. We've seen that here. But, you know, you also on the other side of it have Mao, who's been not only unpredictable, but who's another guy who's been waiting in the wings for a long time. You talk about players like Mini Minter, who spent so many years kind of grinding in the shadows, winning those mid-level competitions. Mao's another guy from that same sort of type of experience.
Yeah, and I think what we need to see Mao do today is come out with something that is comfort for him. I would love to see another minor cycle with Poison in there, not because it's not predictable. It's just because I want to see him go back to the way we saw him play yesterday. And a big part of that, I think, was because he knew that no one knew what he was going to start with, so he went right to his comfort deck in game number 1. He was able to ride that through the entirety of yesterday. Today, though, it feels like he's been trying to keep up with the meta, stay ahead of these guys. Maybe he took what we saw yesterday in a lot of the great decks, and he was like, you know what, I can steal from that. I can do something a little bit different. Or maybe he heard how much we highlighted his off-meta deck style. And what I would like to see him do is, if he's going to do all that, I want him to go comfort. Maybe it's in game 2, maybe game 1 is a little too predictable, but I want to see that so he can go back to the calculated man that we saw yesterday.
You got to wonder if the pressure is being felt now more than yesterday, right? Yesterday, he probably was just happy to make the top 8 and said, let me come out and go swinging. But now it's different, right? You've gotten past those first couple of rounds. Now the money is bigger. Now the points are bigger. Now there's more eyeballs on you. And maybe a sense of the moment that wasn't setting in yesterday is starting to set in today.
Yeah, and you know, part of what you were saying about the practice partners, I think, is really cool to highlight, because, you know, I don't know how often it's happened to you. It's probably once in a million matches for me where I actually run into someone in game where I'm like, oh my God, that's blank. I'm playing in a grand challenge. And I get nervous. I get nervous because, first of all, I'm like, I hope they don't know it's me. And second of all, I know it's going to be an incredibly tough game. There's a reason why I know their name. There's a reason why they're a pro. You talk about Reichert and how long he's been around, how well we know him, and his practice partners. Imagine going to practice with Sam, with Faust, and of course, Morten. Those are the guys you see on the other side of your screen every single day. Mao, while being great, he's 158th on the leaderboard coming into the weekend. His practice partners maybe not as famous or notorious as Reichert's, and that could have been some of the pressure that we saw get into his head earlier on this Sunday.
Well, you think of how much a national scene can push up the level of everybody, right? A rising tide raises all ships, if you will. And this is our first Bolivian player that we've seen at this stage. And from Germany, we're pretty used to seeing those 3 colors flown pretty consistently. And you talk about that German scene. Germany in particular is one of the premier nations in Clash Royale. And it's because you get past the S tier to a very, very talented and high-level A-tier collection of players, a deep roster of A-tier players. So you talk about that, and of course, the level that can create. And I know some of you are sitting there probably in the chat going, hey, can you guys stop talking and start playing some Clash Royale? Well, we are waiting for the players to take their time to get their decks all sorted out and get ready and get loaded in. So we'll have them here in just a couple of moments, and it's going to be a big one, folks. Remember, the winner will move on and guarantee themselves not just $10,000, $1,000, but a whole bunch of points and a chance to go, well, double against Lucas, because remember, these two boys both have the elimination on the docket, while, of course, Lucas Gamer still has that life to give.
That's right, and a whole lot of points in the lead is Lucas X Gamer. If he takes this win this weekend, he's going to further himself as what would be the best player in CR. I know everyone's talking about Mohamed Light. We were talking about Mohamed Light coming into the weekend. Both of them had the potential to repeat, but now with Mo saying goodbye yesterday, with Lucas playing the way that he is, he does have a chance to be our first repeat champion. But as for right now, it's all about the Bolivian and the German, two of the best communities in all of CRL, as you were mentioning. The South American community as well as the German community, so phenomenal.
So just an EUS so far. Now Mega Minion comes out for Mao. And we have seen quite a lot of Electro Wizard this weekend.
A lot of Electro. It's been a great card to help slow things down. It helps with a little bit of that splash damage, but the control that EUS provides is really unmatched.
Both of these players appeared in the CWA Cup 2. A 16th place finish for Reichert, where on the other side of it, Mao came in top 4. So nice work there for Mao in that competition. Would love to continue to improve on that with at least a top 3 finish here so far, maybe more.
Very curious to see how Mao is going to deal with this Double Witch Graveyard deck. We see that he has good responses already. He got the Bar Barrel, he got the Poison, of course. The EUS, all good responses to those Skellies popping from the graveyard, but we know that Reichert's not going to make it that easy. And when you talk about the pressure up front with the spawning units and the pressure down below with those skeletons, that can be really tough to deal with late game.
You see in this case, Mao sporting Zero Zone Club as his org. He's been bopping around the scene for a long time, since 2019. Spent a while with Olimpo Squad and then moved on, did some work with Tribe Academy and No Tilt League. And then, of course, now with Zero Zone here at our CRL competition.
I like this Mega Knight out of Mao, knowing that this would have been a good time for Reichert to go in with the graveyard. He wanted to stop it in its tracks before it became a problem. Still going to take a little bit of damage here, and there's that EWIS we're talking about. Guards down low, EWIS up high. Still a decent amount of damage in Rich, but a lot of responses for Mao that maybe he needs to just tighten up that defense a bit. That might be the first time we've seen guards, certainly this weekend, but I'm trying to think of how many times we've seen guards so far in CRL this year. Very, very few. I believe maybe one other time. And, you know, there's a lot of good ways for the guards to work out. You talk about how much we've started to see Pekka more. You and Eric were touching on that. And, wow, that was very, very close. Could have been a whole lot worse. Now Mega Knight with the guards staying behind the Mega Knight. One might sneak ahead, two sneaks ahead. No, two do stay behind. So this is a significant counter push coming down right now for Mao. Cage not around. Ram Rider not going to connect with the full-on charge. This is a ton of damage, though, Andrew. There's just no way. You see the Ram Rider tanking for that first Mega Knight. Mega Knight still at a substantial level of health, and then the second Ram Rider comes down, and that was a really, really greatly put together and orchestrated offense from Mao with a huge overwhelm early on there for Reichert, who I think didn't even know that it was coming down the lane. I mean, you think about that swing where we were sitting there going, oh my gosh, this is going to do some significant damage over on Mao's bottom left-hand tower. Mega Knight gets there just last in time, and you see the placement there as well, where it was Mega Knight high inside, the guards low outside on that defense, which created a really, really nice thick counter push the opposite direction. And here you go. I believe this is that moment where the Mega Knight comes in last second. And so you see the spacing here. That Mega Knight going to go ahead and get in front of everything and make this just a nasty downhill push that Reichert could not stand up against. And I said Ram Rider earlier. What I meant to say was the Mega Minion taking for the Mega Knight, which then allowed the Ram Rider to come in late. And I don't know why that was so hard for me to say, but when you talk about that Mega Minion tanking for a unit like the Mega Knight, that is a brutal, brutal amount of health that you need to deal with rapidly, because you know once that building's off the board, once any sort of control is off the board, then the Ram Rider is going to come in hot, heavy, and she is so hard to stop. So game number one, Poison played on one side, Fireball on the other, and of course Fireball out, has not yet played Mother Witch. We'll see if we go that direction here in game number two. Mao with a nice win in a match that maybe people were favoring Reichert in. Yeah, I mean, Mao, great deck selection there. A lot of great options. He had the Mega Knight there for a bit of tankage. All the responses in the world to that graveyard, able to turn those pushes into counter pushes. Ram Rider only came in when and where he needed to secure the win. I really, really like what we saw out of Mao there. And once again, it has to do with some really great composure and excellent decks.
I got to wonder if Mao was paying attention to the struggles that P.E.K.K.A. Ram Rider was having earlier, and P.E.K.K.A. kind of finding itself a bit lost in a couple of these games and decided to go with the Mega Knight variation based on that information.
Yeah, and if he did have to run into a P.E.K.K.A., you saw all the great responses he had. The guards were there, the Mega Minion was there. Of course, the Mega Knight is there to tank, but those guards plus, that's enough.
So Zappies for Mao did just see Fireball get played by his opponent, so looking like it might be some variation of Fireball bait.
Again, Inferno coming out here. Inferno's dragons or towers have been very, very popular this weekend, and as you see what decks have been coming out and the cards that are kind of go hand in hand with it, they've been really, really effective. Although right now, Mao maybe not, or excuse me, Riker maybe not loving what Mao is running. As you look at the Zappies, you look at the Bandit, and that Inferno loses a lot of value.
And a little splash there from the Fire Spirit as well, so some nice pressure. And that was, I'm about to say, I wonder if the Flying Machine's in here, most likely. And without Fireball, very curious to see what Reichert's plan is and how much Mao plans to abuse that Flying Machine.
Yeah, that is one of the toughest cards to deal with in the game when you do not have a Fireball to get right on top of it. Now, we'll have to see what Reichert does have, what big spell he does have, but it doesn't feel like he has one that is a great trade, or else we would have seen it come out earlier, and there it is. There's the Lightning. Yeah. That's a big spend, though, Rich, and you can see the head shake from Reichert already.
Yeah, he knows that's a ton of elixir he's using for not much value. And this is tough, right? You see Lightning in this matchup, you see Zappies, you see Pigs, you see so many targets that Lightning doesn't get great value against. So yes, you get the Flying Machine off the board, yes, you can deal with the Furnace, but all those other targets are going to make this a real difficult task for Reichert.
And any time that you use one of those massive spells, those 6 elixir spells in single elixir, you will always have to anticipate your opponent coming in with a big time hit. And that's exactly what Mao did. And Reichert just didn't have enough in the tank to defend. And here we go, Mao turning up the pressure with this dual lane deck. Flying Machine not out yet though, Rich.
He hasn't needed it, really. I mean, this has been pressure, 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 playing really solid defense and then making a bunch of targets that Reichert has to deal with. And you see there, Reichert spent a ton on defense, wasn't able to mitigate all the damage there, and it continues just to be kind of playing from behind. You see a shake of the head, seeing the same thing from him.
Exactly, and Mao is essentially still in an elixir lead. You talk about the Zappies on the board and the responses that he had that weren't really threats, right? That Flying Machine can deal with so many of the cards that Reichert has without even having to worry about getting taken off of the board. And right now, Mao doing a phenomenal job with this good matchup and control of this game.
When you also think about it, how the Inferno Dragon and Lightning both have such difficult jobs to try to pull off in this game. And you're seeing the result of both of those right now. Way more damage on the right-hand side, minute 45 left, double elixir, and that tower's down to 801, and look at Mao's side. Reichert has barely sniffed any damage.
And look at Mao's player. He looks so locked in, which is honestly what we've seen out of him for most of his showing this weekend. But I gotta tell you, again, in that last set against Lucas, I think the nerves got to him a little bit. I think he was playing a little bit less comfortably, a lot more aggressive. And now you can see what the patience is doing for the Bolivian. 801, 1094 to almost 1800 HP and a basically untouched tower.
Pigs down, and this is gonna be a tough one here. Reichert does not get the Dark Prince down very early. A lot of damage coming in. Not quite the death knell yet, but Reichert trying to find some way through is going to be very, very difficult as the Earthquake begins to come in.
Yeah, that Earthquake cycle, a little bit of insult to injury. We're going to see some high, or the 6-man, I should say, split here, right up top. 4-2, all going to the right-hand side, back around to the Furnace, and this is just so beautifully orchestrated by Mini Mao.
Yeah, it's just devastating. There's, you know, you think, hey, at least I can fire back a little bit, but trying to break through the Furnace and the Recruits and the Zappies all together, it's just absolute nightmare for any sort of Royal Giant situation.
Good push here coming in from Reichert. It's not over till it's over. Still 20 seconds left. Now we see the Royal Giant going on the left-hand side. And just as I'm saying that, I think this is very, very over, my friend.
Yeah, it's not over till it's over, but come on, it's over. Oh,
It's
my
over.
word. And Mao going to be going on to our final with a chance to go get revenge at Lucas. $10,000, a whole bunch of points, and a top 2 finish.
Yeah, what a great showing for our 8th seed, who does end up falling from the, the winner's side of the bracket to Lucas, our former champion. But we're going to get that rematch, as you just said. And I wonder how much of that last set is living inside of Mao's brain.
Yeah, it's interesting. Look, it looks like he shaped it off pretty well here in this matchup. A very clean game between these two, but man, you have to go back up against a guy who's clicking so hard. Mao has done a great job this weekend on analysis. Let's put that in context.
Yes.
He has been great with deck picks, has gotten a lot of good advantages, and he better be in the laboratory right now with the whole squad trying to get past these Germans and their really high-level thinking with these matchups.
Yeah, because the thing with Lucas right now is it doesn't feel like the matchup is all that you're going to need, right? You're going to need a good matchup, and you're going to have to play that matchup pretty dang near perfect, because his understanding of the macro right now and his patience is so top tier. Again, I know we've talked a lot about that Fireball log cycle deck. I know it's Expo, but it really was impressive for him to never once get ahead of himself and try to get that Expo on the board, knowing that that would have fed that Royal Giant deck. And that's the type of composure we're going to see out of, or hopefully we're going to see out of this man on the left side of your screen, Mini Mao, as he goes to our finals.
Game number 1. I mean, this one for a little while felt like Reichert had it going on with the Mega Knight Graveyard. Had a good advantage early on, put Mao in some tough spots. But, I might have to go back after this matchup and look at that last exchange where Mini Mao just turned it around and created a push that Reichert could not stand up to finish the game.
Yeah, I mean, not only was it what you were saying, Rich, on broadcast, which was that brilliant last-second Mega Knight. We all know how that feels when you overspend and a Mega Knight comes down and there's a really big positive elixir trade. Not only was there a good elixir trade there was very little damage that came into the Mega Knight after that. Then you add in that great positioning of the Mega Minion to tank for the tankiest card in the deck, and you throw in your win condition behind all of that. It really flipped on a dime. And as we got into game number 2 here with these two decks, this was a slow burn for Mini Mao.
Yeah, I mean, look at the expression on the Royal Giant's face. That picture was taken when he saw Zappies, a Furnace, and Royal Recruits all on the opposite side of the board. Just absolute nightmare fuel for a Royal Giant, and this was just a shutdown matchup for Mao.
And you saw that when he was actually able, when Reichert was able to get aggressive, because this is not a quick cycling Royal Giant deck. Mao was already there and always there with whatever response he needed. And as we take a look at the bracket here, we talked about it. We saw it just a moment ago. Mao versus Lucas X Gamer. We're going to get that at least one more time.
Yeah, and we'll see if Lucas can make it go the same way again. And this becomes an interesting question, right? Because Lucas has been playing phenomenally. Lucas has made some interesting choices, especially with that 3.0 Expo in the first matchup that we saw. But I'm very curious if Lucas tries to go traditional and just play some shutdown game here in this first matchup, or if he tries to go with something bigger, something less predictable, knows he has that second BO3 in his pocket if he needs it, and either goes for content, goes to make a statement, goes just for something fun. Who knows what he does here? I'm very curious to see, because we have seen him go with some different looks this weekend.
Yeah, will it be Lucas deciding to keep the pressure up and just win out, or will he like to sit back and try to feel out his opponent? And while we're trying to figure that out, it's time for you guys to let us know who you think is going to win our finals. Will it be Lucas or will it be Mini Mao? Hashtag Lucas, hashtag Mini Mao in the chat is the only way to vote. Of course, we will be voting as well, and we'll be talking about the numbers that you guys submit. But get your votes in right now, as myself, Rich, and of course our co-casters are going to talk about our finals in just a moment. But voting, that starts this moment.
Go ahead, throw your votes in there. We'll get ours in a moment. But first, let's go ahead and invite back on the other 2 members of our 4-man squad for 2021. Of course, one more time for those in the cheap seats, that's Eric Benamou, world champion coach of Team Liquid and multiple-time CRL North American champion and CRL Western champion, Crap, a.k.a. Joshua Sharon, in the bottom right-hand side. Eric, we'll start with you. We're coming into a championship moment. You have a player who's been here before and a player who's never been on a stage like this. What are you doing from a coach's perspective to get both these guys mentally ready for this moment?
If I'm Lucas, I'm not changing anything. I'm literally going in with the same game plan. It's worked. There's no reason to. And at the end of the day, you're the veteran. You're the guy sitting at that top bracket. You have 2 lives. There's no reason to really change anything. But on the other end, the thing that I really realized in the first match between these 2 was Mao seemed to be a little lacking a little bit of risks, right? You want to really go out there and risk it all in this match. Show Lucas something that he's never seen before, because if you go at him with a Huggy Q, with an RG deck, with any of these normal decks, he knows how to beat that, and he knows how to beat it with any deck. So if I'm Mao, I'm taking the risk. You made it top 2. Really go out there and show him something different, like he just did to Raikar, right? Furnace, Fire Spirit, recruits Huggy's deck. That is the type of things I want to see.
Josh, I'm going to go to you now, and I'm going to ask here, what did you see out of Mao in that last set between him and Reichert that was substantially different from what we saw between him and Lucas? Without talking about their opponents, it did feel like Mao changed something up between those 2 sets.
Right, yeah. I mean, I don't know if he was nervous against Lucas or what it was, but, you know, with deck choices, again, with the recruits, Hogs, Furnace, Bandit, I mean, you don't see that from anybody. You have to keep that up. You have to continue to do those kind of decks, because especially with how Lucas is playing right now, the set against each other, he used E-Giant and he used P.E.K.K.A. He's using anything. So obviously Lucas is very confident right now. So you have to kind of play into that. You have to use your comfort while also trying to stay hidden. I like his chances. He just needs to do something different.
So our viewers are going around voting right now, and it's time to put everyone here on the hot seat. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and take the bullet first here and say I'm going with Lucas. He's playing so well over the last 6 weeks or so. Really some of the best Clash Royale we've ever seen him play. And Mao has to beat him twice. That's a big task. So I'm going to pick Lucas. And let's go around the horn clockwise. So right below me on screen, Josh, Lucas or Mao? Who do you got?
Yeah, I'm not going to get crazy either. I think it has to be Lucas. You know, he's feeling so confident. Last time he was in this kind of position, he kind of used some odd decks. I don't think he's going to, you know, do that this time. I think he's going to use something that he's good with that maybe he hasn't shown that often, but I would like to see maybe a Hog EQ. I just want him to play his comfort, because he knows that he's the best in the world currently.
Eric?
Yeah, and if I was the last person giving a prediction, I'd feel a little bit more committed to going with the crazy choice with Mao. But that's not my problem. That's the guy above me's problem. I'm going with Lucas, and I'm going 2-0 Lucas. I just think he's too good right now, and good luck, Andrew.
All right, Mao, it's you and me, brother, riding this out to the end. I'm going for Mini Mao. I've been wrong before, but it feels so good to be right when you vote for the underdog. I think he's going to be able to turn things around. I hope he learned what he did wrong against Lucas. He is going to be my winner. That's the guy that I'm picking, and I'm very excited to be wrong about it if it does happen, but I always love pulling for an underdog.
Yeah, he certainly has been the underdog the whole way through. An 8th seed battling his way here, and we've seen this once before. An even lesser known 8th seed in Ta coming out. Let's go back and kind of marry those two. Ta made his way through the winner's bracket, didn't have that disadvantage in the final round. Where do you rate chances for Mao versus what Ta's chances were in that moment? Final question here. Josh, go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, Ta, the reason why, you know, Ta isn't like the craziest thing ever was that it was early on. So, you know, you could get away with certain things that you couldn't get away with now. You know, he used E-Giant consistently. He didn't mix up a ton of things. He mixed up, you know, deck number 2, deck number 3, but he always had that one deck that he kind of fell back on. You don't really have that option available to you at this point, especially going against someone with so much experience. You know, 2 or 3 on the leaderboards. He's done it all. He's had perfect gameplay throughout this entire 2-month period. So even though I believe that Mao is a phenomenal player, who is arguably a top 24 player in the world, he's showing that, you know, he can compete with the best of them and outplay some of the best of them. I think it's a lot different now that we're, you know, 6 months in.
Well, we still have, I'm getting word from the booth, we still have a couple minutes here as the players finalize their decks. So, you know, Eric, you're known for some of the hot takes, so I'm going to throw a hot take right your way right now. There's been a lot of discussion about players trying to break in to those big tournaments like the Queso Cup, like the CWA Cup, like the Bren Chong Cup, and Mao's one of those players who online has been calling for an opportunity to get an invite to those positions. Do you think that Mao has earned an invite to one of those events with his performance here this weekend?
Yes, and the key words is with his performance this weekend. This is what I love to see. Show us you deserve to be in them. Don't tell me on Twitter, don't tell the organizations. You got to come out here and show that you deserve to be there. And he's showing it not only in the sense that he's here, but how he's here. And what I love about Mao is he found a way to succeed in his own right. So yes, like you were talking about earlier, Todd did the same thing, but Todd was a guy that I think really got through it based on his analysis. Like Josh was saying, it was a lot earlier days, so it was a little bit easier in the sense that he got a lot of really good matchups. In this time around, Mao has found success in weird off-meta decks, right? The Furnace deck we saw today, but even yesterday with that giant Skelly RG deck, you just don't see that. So I love to see a player finding success in his own way. And yes, I think he deserves a shot.
And while we're waiting on these last decks to get made, one thing that we did like that we saw out of Mao yesterday was his control. He did play a minor control deck with Poison. Is that a fruitless journey right now going up against Lucas, who has proven to be probably the best defender in the July bracket? Eric, it looks like you have some opinions on this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, don't go head on to Lucas with what he's used to, man. It's just, I have never seen it work for anyone, you know, like, so, I mean, that's why I said early on, you got to come at him with something he hasn't seen. He is someone that has played ladder every day for the past, I don't know how many years. He's played every single competition. He's played CRL. He's played Worlds. If you go at him with the basic decks, there's no matchup he hasn't tried. And he's the type of player that will sit there with Basoto, right, and figure out how to win the tough matchups. Okay, get a good matchup versus me, and we're going to play it 10 times, and I'm going to figure out how to win. So if you go at him head on with something that he already has seen a million times, it's just not going to work out well.
Well,
and Josh, you're kind of... Oh, go ahead, Rich.
I was going to say, no more waiting. We actually have the matchup, I believe, here ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and say goodbye to Eric and Josh. And Andrew, this is what we've been waiting for, that championship moment. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Josh, for the excellent insight. But we're wasting no more time and jumping into some excellent action here. And Andrew, I know that you just as much as I am so excited to see how this one plays out.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I'm excited, Josh and Eric. It's always good to see you guys. And one of the things that, or I guess what I was just about to say as we got word from production that we're going to get going was, I wonder if we try to see something like a clone come out, something that does have like a 100-0 matchup that is really surprising, right? If they're a way for Mao to use something that is off meta or unexpected out of him, it's busting out something like Golem Clone, busting out something like Lava Clone, or maybe just going to the skies. We've really only seen a sky match once this weekend, I believe, where we saw, I can't remember who exactly it was, play Lava Hound, and it ended up working out okay, but we haven't seen a whole lot of that type of stuff. We haven't seen the cheekiness of a clone. I'm wondering if you look for something that is that crazy in a matchup like this just to get a steal off of Lucas, or if you're digging yourself in a deeper hole because he's going to play something very, very safe. But even those safe decks have bad matchups.
That gets into an interesting question, and we're seeing our community results here. It looks like everyone agreeing. Wow. It's actually the same ratio, right? We went 3-1 in our votes. The community going 3-1 as well. 72% saying Lucas, 28%. So a little extra boost to your pick there, Andrew. You know, you're talking about a matchup like Lava. You're talking about a situation like Arrows, and you think about Lucas being known for playing Hog. A longtime Hog player, Hog EQ with Firecracker, very popular. That's not a bad choice for Mao to put into his deck pool. So we'll see. Instead, it's Mao opening up our championship match with Wall Breakers right into a Mother Witch.
You know, it's exactly what I said, and apparently Eric, Josh, and everyone was saying that's not what you do. You don't go quick cycle into the Cycle Master, and Lucas may be happy to see Wall Breakers on the other side of this, as he has proven to be an incredible player of these quick decks. But now we're seeing Wall Breakers plus Goblin Barrel. This is fun.
And that's really excellent timing and placement to pull that off and get the King Tower activation there against the Golem Bear with that Fisherman. Not super easy to do. And a nice recovery there with the log not being in cycle to play up against that barrel play on the right-hand side. Brilliant, brilliant play so far from Lucas.
Yeah, really, really nice there. You saw that he knew the big push was going to come in on that right-hand side. He got the E-Spirit out early so he could get back around to the log. And now 8 Elixir in the tank to deal with this Royal Giant push. It's going to be easy at this moment, but I like what we're seeing out of Lucas already.
Well, Tesla log should do nicely against Royal Giant, but there's one other big problem here, and that's that some major parts of the damage of the DPS for Mao feed that Mother Witch.
And now you see this Valkyrie walking down the healthier of the two lanes, 1370 remaining already on that top left tower for Mao, which you never really want to be that far behind with bait. And as you can see, when you are that far behind with bait, one of the great luxuries you have is Rocket. Not today, or at least not for Mao right now.
Man, that King Tower activation going to be an absolute nightmare for Mao, and you can see he's certainly not happy about it. The wall breaker is going to need some help to get to tower in a meaningful way. Same thing, Goblin Barrel going to be significantly reducing its damage and already way behind playing bait. Rough situation here for the Bolivian.
And you see right there, Mao going for that log to get on top of the E-Spirit. Not there. Lucas changes up his defense as you need to do at the highest level. A brilliant Electro Spirit,
wow.
Rich. It hits the offensive E-Spirit.
Wow.
It hits the Goblins out of the barrel. And that is why we are calling him the best player in the world at this moment with 2 RGs on the board.
Yeah, double RG down, very quick cycle. This thing gets around so fast. 7 Elixir to get back around to another Royal Giant, and Lucas Gamer is playing it just like that.
And we've seen these type of RG decks just be so brutal to keep up with. You're so busy thinking about having to deal with the other Royal Giant that by the time you've dealt with that offensive push, the second one comes down in the opposite lane and you're usually left wanting offensively. And Lucas has been very aggressive this game.
Yeah, and Mao, you can see the discomfort here. Lucas just saw a moment, played it, made a brilliant opening play with that King Tower activation, and from there on just turned the heat up. He cycled Royal Giant behind King Tower during a bait push on the right-hand side, right?
Yes.
That level of aggression in single Elixir is insane.
Well, I mean, you talk about the positive trades that he made. Yes, there was that great positive trade of you saw the wall breakers come in with the log behind and he just used the log to defend. That's maybe not so fancy. But the first one, when you saw the Valkyrie plus the wall breakers come in, and that was when he was able to set up the offensive push while defending very cheaply. E-Spirit plus log, beautiful stuff there. And when you talk about Lucas being a cycle god, Royal Giant cycle decks is something that he has done for a very, very long time, and he makes getting 2 of those on the board look very, very easy to do.
There were just so many things here that were so insanely clean, from the King Tower activation to that great Electro Spirit going forwards then backwards that you called out, the aggression. Lucas playing his best Clash Royale in July of 2021.
And just great fireball work too, man. It's so tough to get those fireballs right on top of the firecrackers right when you need them before that shot goes off. And he was also able to find the value every single time it was there to help create bigger offensive threats because there was less defense there for Mao. And honestly, it's crazy because there was so much hype. There was the whole talk with our boys, and here we are. We're 1 game away from Lucas walking away with another $20,000, being our very first repeat champion. The Bolivian has got to change things up. I don't really know what Mao can do at this point, though. That game looked real tough, and so did the other 2 that he played today against Lucas.
Well, he tried to be unpredictable, right? He went for double bait with no big spell. And you talk about being unpredictable, that's an unpredictable choice. But it's not a going for matchup choice, it's going for unpredictability. And now we see Mao do the exact opposite thing. Game number 1 went unpredictable but fast. Game number 2, he says, I'm gonna try to go for an 80-20, a 90-10 matchup.
And already, Rich, we see something good here for the Brazilian in the snowball. When you talk about these decks, the hog decks right now, they're usually run with EQ, they're usually run with log. The firecracker's there to help out with the air. But you can already see this deck, it has the firecracker and the bats to help out with all of that. You know the Tesla's going to be there. And yeah, definitely a bit of an oh boy, because you know some good damage is going to come in here.
Yeah, just the arrows make this so hard for Lucas. Basically, no matter what, Mao can just decide if he wants that firecracker on the board or not at any moment. And you see it happen right there. Huge opening play, and Lucas has to give the fire.
Yeah, he's got a little smile on his face too, and that's the comfortability that you get to have when you're up a game and up a set. And Mao, though, really nice stuff here, and I love that he's going to the skies against this deck. Those arrows going to be really tough for Lucas to deal with.
Yeah, arrows for the firecracker, and then you have the skelly drags for the bats. So you have two really kind of nightmare situations for trying to stop these lava hound pushes.
Yeah, and if you can't get the firecracker with the arrows, you can send in that miner and hopefully get the job done. So a lot of great options here for Mao to deal with Lucas's defenses. And, you know, this is a very tough thing to do when you talk about keeping up with the damage in both lanes and not getting overwhelmed late game.
Yeah, and Lucas already called a good game. This was a rough one, and, you know, I was talking about that exact thing that Mao, we talked about. I think Eric was talking about, you know, going for matchups here, going to be unpredictable. Game number one was super unpredictable, but again, it was one that you have to be able to outplay with that unpredictability. You're not going to, it's unlikely that you get some amazing matchup. Lava Miner arrows, it's one of those ones where if you get the right matchup, you have to make a huge mistake to lose.
Lucas still put together a really nice push just now, Rich. And now he's just going to sacrifice that tower on the right-hand side to try to create another big Hog Knight Firecracker push. There you go. There it is once again. Spirit's going to come in. Firecracker's going to help clean things up. Knight's going to tank for that Hog, but I just don't know if it's enough.
The Fire Spirit and the Firecracker connecting opens up a door a little bit. He has to deal with this Fisherman and get another Hog down right now. So he's going to play something high here, distract the Fisherman, get a Hog down. So there's the Knight. The Hog going to try to come in behind and get some damage on tower. EQ might be enough. Firecracker comes in. Snowball make a little bit of room. EQ gets its shot. Not quite going to be enough here. Cycle's not going to be it, and it looks like it's going to be all tied up 1-1.
And I really have to commend Mao for changing up his defense. He knew he couldn't just keep laying stuff down in that lane. The Firecracker was going to get too much splash. The Fire Spirit was going to help clean things up. So what does he do? He goes Miner on the other side of the bridge to turn the Knight around. Now the Hog is open for everything to focus on. Get it off the board, then deal with the Knight. And I love to see that out of Mao. His defense wasn't working. You saw these massive swings that Lucas was taking, and he was getting a lot back for them. So what does he do? He sends in that Miner on the other side of the bridge, keeps the Knight in place. GG, we're going to game number 3.
It was a really great sequence there at the end. I think we might see a little bit more of it. And, you know, it's one of those situations where if Lucas had one extra elixir a half second early and got that Hog down, that's one extra Hog hit and potentially at least a 2-tower game. Now, a 2-tower game might be difficult for him, but you see here, he just got that Hog down a half step late. The defense got there in time to prevent the extra hit. And that's a huge difference. And now Mao in a good chance, a good spot, and very unpredictable with his decks, a good spot to send us to a super grand final.
Yeah, and I'd love to see what Lucas is going to come out with now when you talk about the spells that have been used and the spells that are available. You know, how can Lucas exploit that? And maybe he has a deck perfectly lined up for that already. We just saw arrows come out and how effective they were in game number 2. Of course, you got to add in the spells that were used in game number 1. And now which one of these guys will be able to use that most to their advantage? That's what we saw a lot in game number 3 was one person was just left wanting whatever card it may have been, whether it was a log or arrows or a fireball. It does seem like that spell power, the lack thereof in game number 3 does seem to be a big deciding X factor.
Well, Lucas has lightning, poison, and rocket remaining, and with the direction that Mao's going, Goblin Giant Sparky Rage wouldn't be crazy. Instead, looks like he's going fireball bait.
Yep, here we go. Magic Archer out. This is exciting stuff. Lucas could walk away as our very first repeat champion. $20,000 more to make it a $40,000 30-day run. Mao on the other side of it, the least he can walk away with is 10 grand in second place. Not too bad for a first timer.
Lucas going with one of my favorite decks overall in the game. It looks like Minor Wall Breakers with Magic Archer. And maybe NATO in here as well, which is a whole lot of fun. But that's a big graveyard push on the left-hand side.
And look at that great activation there with the King Tower. The delivery, though, just a step too low. But you can see Mao knows how brutal that is going to be to deal with as this game goes on. And he goes, how on earth does this man keep activating King Tower against me?
Yeah, I need to go back and watch the sequence again. As soon as you've seen Magic Archer and Spear Goblins, you have to expect tornadoes in this deck. I mean, Magic Archer in general, but Magic Archer, Spear Goblins, that's going to be the Minor Wall Breakers NATO deck. You have to expect it. I don't remember exactly when the Goblin Cage came down, but that's going to be a pretty clean King Tower activation every time for a player of Lucas's caliber.
I mean, Mao throws in that bar barrel up front to try to tank for it. He throws in the graveyard on the back end and maybe hoping that he can overwhelm Lucas, or that maybe Lucas doesn't have everything perfectly in sequence. And you saw him take a bit of damage because of that. You know, the Royal Delivery was his only good option to get back around to Valkyrie. But otherwise, yeah, that NATO onto King, brilliant stuff there. The bar barrel maybe a bit of an overspend, and now an uphill battle for the Bolivian through the rest of this matchup.
Pretty healthy Mega Knight on the board. Slightly ahead on Elixir right now is Mao. And this should hold pretty well high. Just gonna ignore that Miner, I believe, and try to go in heavy.
Yeah, a little bit over-aggressive there out of Lucas. Those wall breakers went right into set up Zappies, which then turned this into a great counter push. Now the NATO's out of cycle with Zappies still on tower. This is trouble.
That's a whole lot of trouble. And now with the Mother Witch behind, Spear Goblins getting taken off by the Fireball. This is a ton of damage, Andrew.
And the Zappies just living forever on the board. Mother Witch still untouched. Zappies behind to slow things down. Mao may be getting a little ahead of himself now, but he does get back around to another graveyard. Piggy tanking for Skellies. Lucas still in trouble.
That Mother Witch into the Spear Goblins, that's a big, big blow. And there you go. Tower down. Mao does it. He wins the first BO3, turns things around. We're going to a super grand final. Run it back, boys. Let's go.
Oh, you love to see it. You love to see it. Those Mother Witches are so brutal. If you get just a little bit of value out of that Mother Witch and she stays on the board for a little longer than your opponent anticipates, it is insane how fast that card can turn a game. I truly believe that the Mother Witch is the cheapest card that can most radically and drastically change the weight and swing of a game. Just like that, Rich. I know Graveyard is like that, but Graveyard, you got to usually get a tank down. You got to help it out with the snowball. That Mother Witch value here was just brutal.
And you see the problem arose just a half second before that replay came in. You know, you get a King Tower activation that gets Graveyard, and you feel like, well, GG, I got this thing locked down. But a Mega Knight Graveyard deck, that Mega Knight can tank. You can't let that Mega Knight get in range of the King Tower and take away the advantage that you bought for yourself. And that right there changed everything. Mega Knight gets in and tanks. Huge advantage. Forces Lucas to overspend with the Tornado. And next thing you know, we're going to a repeat grand final.
And he just got too aggressive there. He thought that he had that defense on the Mega Knight locked down so easily. He felt so confident to go, all right, Mega Knight's taken care of. I'm going to go Miner plus Wall Breakers. Problem was, Mega Knight wasn't taken care of. Zappies came down right at the bridge. Those Wall Breakers literally provided nothing other than throwing 2 Elixir down the drain. Miner on the back end completely ignored. So now we're talking about 5 Elixir on the board that Mao can completely ignore and turn into offense. This is exactly what he did. And we'll talk about that maybe a hair more as we get to deck number 3. But this was our first matchup. Cycle against Cycle. One win condition being the Goblin Barrel, the other being the Royal Giant.
Mao went for the right idea. He went unpredictable, and he did that throughout this matchup, right? Went with the more predictable deck near the end of the matchup rather than the beginning once he had more information. Just this unpredictability required him to outplay Lucas, and that's a tall order to make, especially in this matchup.
Yeah, and Lucas was able to control this game by having incredibly efficient positive Elixir trade defenses, and then he was able to get those Royal Giants down when Mini Mao did not have enough to defend. Now we go to the second game here, and we got to see it. We got to see him go to the skies, which is exactly what I was talking about. When you look at this matchup, you know, I've been playing the Hog EQ log deck quite a bit on ladder, and I know what matches up well and what matches up poorly against it. Lucas with a set to give, you would think he would go Hog EQ at some point. Mao got really lucky with when he decided to come out with the Sky, attack Rich, and of course, those arrows. You called it out early on. Great value there. He had a +1 trade early on, taking out a Firecracker and the Fire Spirit. And then from that point on, it was basically just his game.
It was his game indeed. And then on to game number 3. And this one just turned on a dime. And that's what happens in Clash Royale. one thing changes and everything goes. And you talk about the way Lucas has played all weekend. Lucas has made his bones this weekend on lockdown defense. And in one moment, you mentioned it, the overcommit, the miner going to the back of the tower, when that miner could have gone to help with the Mother Witch, could have helped with distracting the Mega Knight and not letting it go and tank for the graveyard. So many other options, but got aggressive here, and that turned around and bit him very, very hard with a nasty push from Mao.
Yeah, I think it was just a Royal Delivery plus Spear Goblins, which usually would be enough. The delivery comes down, takes care of the MK. It got the Electro Wizard off the board. The Spear Goblins are there to provide a little bit more DPS, but the Zappies were right there, and those Zappies were so much trouble for Lucas. And when you look at what he has spell power wise, it makes a lot of sense. Nothing there for the Mother Witch, nothing there for the Zappies. He only has NATO. So let's take a look at our bracket as we now get to go to our super grand finals. Winner take all, 10 grand a second, 20 to first, and a whole lot of leaderboard points. Here we go, man. Match 15 of the weekend.
Yeah, this is nutty. And now they both have to go back into the lab and try to figure out what are they going to do this time around. You know, Lucas came out and played some stuff. The Royal Giant deck, we hadn't seen from him much, but he played some stuff that, you know, things that we might expect out of him. And then Mao didn't do that. Mao came and did a whole bunch of stuff we hadn't seen really a whole lot. Interestingly enough, it's a similar situation to the first match he had against Mohamed Light, where the question was, what's Mao going to run in game number 3? And they were worried about Mao potentially running that Lava Miner Arrows deck and made a choice based on that. And in this case, you see if you go with that Hog Firecracker deck against Lava Miner Arrows in game number 2, the trouble it can cause. So very curious to see what Mao has in store. He has been all over the place in deck selection, and this is a great time to pull out something no one's seen.
And, you know, when you talk about that Royal Giant deck that Lucas played, I'd love to see him play that again. I'm totally okay with him going right back to it. He has proven to be one of the better Royal Giant players in the world. We know he's one of the best cycle players out there, period. And I like that deck for him. I think it has a lot of great defensive capabilities. I think he's able to create a ton of offensive pressure and really highlight his skills as a defender. When we talked about these guys out there in the world, the Igors, the Lapos, the Jacks, the Samuels, and now the Lucases, these guys that can get massive defenses out of 4 and 5 elixir, maybe stopping 10 to 12 elixir coming down the lane. That's what separates him. So why not take that and run with it? Graveyard's a little too risky right now early on when you worry about, and Lucas now probably has a bad taste in his mouth with the Mother Witch. Maybe go back to Royal Giant. I love to see it, and he's been really popular lately. Harder to counter than the Hog Rider as well.
Heck, I wouldn't mind seeing Lucas play Expo, right? He's one of those guys who can do it. It's fun. I don't know if it's the greatest choice in this moment, but I'd love to see him do it and go for an outplay. But what I wouldn't do is go with anything you expect him to play in game number 2. Game number 2, in my opinion, is the game where Lucas needs to be unpredictable and go with something that we don't expect from his arsenal.
Yeah, I really do not want to see a Hog Rider deck in game number 2. I don't want to see like a quick cycle control deck in game number 2. I'd like to see him play something heavy. That's the other thing that we've been talking about with how great he is we've seen him play a lot of different archetypes. But can he play those archetypes in those win conditions in the highest pressure of moments? We see him be a little bit more loose with deck selection when maybe not as much is on the line, whereas you know, makes a whole lot of sense. He likes to go back to things that are considered more comfort in his arsenal for these high pressure games. He's shown how great he is with all archetypes. Let's vary it up a bit here in the grand finals.
So another couple of minutes here for our players to prepare their new deck sets for this super grand finals as they go through and work through their strategy, and we think about their strategy. And of course, talking about all those strategies, you can apply those same things every single month to qualify for CRL yourself. Where does it start? Well, it starts with that monthly race to the top of the ladder. The top 1,000 finishers in trophies get invited to our Swiss bracket. You play through those 11 games, you win 8 or 9 of those 11, and maybe more, you can make it to that round robin stage where you battle it out over 5 matches, over 6 matches against some of the best in the world. And if you can do all of that, you find your way here to the top 8 on the broadcast to play in front of everybody watching and for those big moments. So go ahead, get your push ready, and maybe we'll see you here next month.
And if you could do all of that a couple of times throughout the year, then we get to see you at our World Finals, or at least the last chance qualifier, which will happen at the very, very end of these monthly finals runs before we get into, of course, our World Finals. 24 players, the top 24 players in the world will be getting that golden ticket to the World Finals. The final 8 will be filled in that last chance qualifier, a bit of a wild card game, if you will. And knowing the best in the world, we talked about it before the broadcast, Rich. There's the top 3 players in the world, there's the top 24 players in the world, there's the top 50, and then there's everyone else that plays Clash Royale, the other millions of us out there. Getting into that top 32, it needs to start maybe last month. It's not something that you can just start doing now unless you're going to win out the rest of these monthly finals, which is, as you guys can see, has proven to be very, very difficult.
Well, you take a look at that top 56, right? The people who are qualified, the top 24 directly in, and the remaining players into that last chance qualifier. You can't find a name. If you follow competitive Clash Royale, you know every single name in that top 56. They are all players who are proven commodities, and the majority of those players who are in the top 50 or so are top 50 world players, not just here in this ranking, but if you did a ranking just hanging out, people talking, they'd be on that list as well. So we've talked about it before, but one of the things that this competition has done this year is having it go over 8 months of gameplay. We really are finding the best players in Clash Royale.
And it's crazy to think that there's quote-unquote sleepers out there like Morton and Ruben, who Ruben being a former monthly final champion, Morton, don't even need to say who he is, but these guys, they don't have to be here every single month, right? They know with the work that they put in throughout the season, you're going to see them at World Finals, and that's going to be playoff basketball. That's going to be finals. That's going to be Super Bowl level of gameplay. Everyone kicks it up a notch when they get to that final stage. You and I have had the joy of being there year after year after year after year, and we always see everyone turn it up to 11, find that extra gear.
Well, here we go, the Super Grand Final. No resets this time. Winner of this best of 3 is your monthly champion. $20,000 on the line, a lot of points on the line, and for Lucas, a chance to put some real pressure on Mohamed Light for that #1 seed going into our final 2 months.
That's right, Lucas going very quick here at the bottom of your screen. Mao going right back to those zappies, which he's had a lot of success with. And now we see Lucas setting up a Tesla, which we all know when Lucas just sits back and defend how frustrating he can be to play against.
So Mortar Zappies, we'll see if this is Royal Hogs. Dark Prince getting in deep, and this is an interesting look at Minor Cycle.
Yeah, Dark Prince is there. Dark Prince super popular in the meta right now, mainly because of dealing with Goblin Drill, but not a card that these guys have to worry about today. Nice timing there on the defense there from Lucas. You saw how the Spear Goblins distracted the Zappies, which allowed that Dark Prince to get a charge off and then now get some damage in on that tower.
You know, sometimes a card changes the meta and reminds you why a card is valuable overall because of that change. And you see Dark Prince and Valk both in here, which have huge use rates because of Goblin Drill, which is not allowed here. But that Goblin Drill meta maybe has reinvigorated the love for these 2 cards in the player base.
Totally. I mean, we saw so much Bomber this weekend as well, knowing that Goblin Drill wasn't in play. But you talked about it a lot yesterday. That card being 2 Elixir, the amount of damage it can get down, how much it can help your cycle, it is so strong, and it counters one of the best win conditions in the game.
Zappies do connect, so just a half step late there for the Dark Prince, who's not going to go all the way, turns around for the bar barrel. First 2 minutes away. So far it is Lucas with the advantage as that log chip takes it down to 19-10 on the right-hand side, going into double Elixir.
Finding damage anywhere that he can. You know, he goes for the log there, and then the Spear Goblins going to create a bigger push. Then, of course, the Skeletons, which could come out. And, of course, that log coming in. A little bit more expensive, but gets that chip damage in that you need.
High Tesla going to get eaten up, and now the Valkyrie does get taken off the board, so Princess will work against the Graveyard rather than the way around, but a nice bit of poison value on Tower, Dark Prince, Spear Goblins, and Skeletons.
I'm really curious to see how this is going to play out over time. This mortar will connect here. The big thing, though, is Lucas, the way that he's defending, all those cards are kind of poisonable, or at least they're going to give him good value. And going into the exact same lane as a Graveyard player with Minor control could be really, really tough late game.
Minor does go in, sets up the Mega Minion to take it off the board and begin the counter push. Dark Prince might be a concern here. Delivery comes out to solve that problem. As we go into sudden death, The lead is for Lucas, but it does feel slightly precarious as this Mega Minion will tank for that graveyard.
Yeah, nice bar barrel going to come in and get those skeletons out. Mega Minion being a little bit more of a threat because of that. Nice cleanup here defensively for Lucas. Takes maybe a bit more than he wanted, but Mao still not happy about not being able to pick up those miners.
Is happy about that Dark Prince getting turned around by the graveyard, though. Gave him a little bit more time to reset for his defense. That's a lot of rocket value. Doesn't get the last two off, but still nice work for Lucas.
What a heads-up rocket, too. They make it look like they were hovering that. You know he saw that quick drop, then the rocket came out. That got on the board so quickly, and that's, again, the pros make this stuff look so easy. Great heads-up play there from the Brazilian.
The high Tesla comes out one more time with the Dark Prince trying to give it some help. Tanking for a Tesla. Such a fascinating thing to see in this moment as we go into triple elixir. It is Mao slightly behind, but it feels like he's beginning to get some momentum.
Yeah, a little bit of momentum, but these Teslas, man, Lucas is so good at SimCity. Maybe in his past life, he was a SimCity pro because he can build up a city on his side of the board like it's nothing. Rocket value in, miner on tower. This is trouble for Mao.
Yeah, that miner rocket was absolutely brilliant. Now that we're in triple elixir, those rockets are going to start flying very, very fast. You got to catch the miners at this stage. Doesn't catch that one. Zappies come in, and that's going to be a big, big problem. Rocket comes down, log behind, and that's a GG Lucas. Now with a second time having championship point.
That's right. Second time he's got match and tournament point in these matchups today. The third time we're seeing Mao and Lucas go head-to-head. Lucas takes set one, sends Mao down to the elimination bracket. Mao battles through that, gets to the grand finals, takes it in a reverse sweep, and here we are. Super Grand Finals, Lucas back out on top. Great deck selection here. He goes back to comfort, minor control. Great stuff there with that Tesla. That Tesla is so dirty when in the hands of Lucas X.
Did a good job of getting the Tesla high and protecting it, and also sort of forcing Mao into a bridge fight. You see some of the shaking of the head. Mao was stuck in a bridge fight a lot and kept on using the less than ideal response, I think, with the Zappies, giving a lot of value on defense.
Well, it doesn't look like it on paper, but when you look at these two decks, it's actually really easy for Lucas to win those bridge battles, and it's not because of the troop cards, it's because of that Tesla. That Tesla being set up high is like having another massive high DPS single target unit that is just defensive, dealing with those bridge battles, making it so Mao could never actually get a good tank in for those graveyards. You saw later on in that game, whenever he was able to, a lot of times it was the skeletons tanking for things like a Mega Minion or tanking for something like a Bar Barrel, which is really, really easy to manage when you have Spear Goblins and, of course, those skeletons as well. So really nice recognition there of Lucas of going, all right, as long as I win these bridge battles, I'm going to win this game. Those miners are going to get on tower. He cannot catch them.
Here we go. Game number 2, championship point for Lucas. We'll see if he can close it out this time or if Mao can repeat history and send us to a third and final once more.
Yeah, that's the first set that Lucas loses this weekend, obviously, as he was the champion of our champion side of the bracket. And Mao's got to feel good about making those sets even, 1-1.
That's a little snowball there to force the Mother Witch into a confrontation. And no King Tower activation.
Yeah, doesn't get the King Tower activation, won't get it here. With the Fisherman off in no man's land. A little bit of damage here for Lucas and a fireball out.
So both players taking a moment to reset a bit. Lucas goes high with the mortar on the left-hand side, so mortar now played by both players. And it's mortar cannon cart. It was interesting, we did not see cannon cart in the deck from Mao last time around in our first game, which mortar GY often runs cannon cart. Curious about that choice.
Yeah, the cannon cart, you know, as slow as it is now, just such a presence on the board. And when you talk about that dual pressure of being at the front end at the bridge and on the back end with the graveyard, it can be really, really difficult to deal with.
I think Lucas was trying to decide for a minute there whether he thought that giant skeleton would go down early or not. In the last second, decides better safe than sorry. Valk goes and pulls it off the board. Fireball on defense from Mao for those piggies.
Yeah, Piggy's going to bring that tower down below 2,000 as the regular pig, or the normal pig, whatever we want to call it. 2446, just a little bit of a snout bite there.
Well, assuming that this is Royal Giant as the last card with this giant skeleton deck, being up against Mortar, not something that Mao's super happy about.
Yeah, and Lucas doing the correct thing, right? Cycle those cannon carts as much as you can in the back. That way you can have potentially 3 buildings at one point to defend, right? You get the cannon cart out early, you get the first mortar down, you go on offense, you're able to get another cannon cart or another mortar down. And that's going to be the idea here, to keep these Royal Giant pushes at bay. And then for Mao, it's going to be all about breaking through with that Giant Skeleton to clean up the defense from Lucas so he can actually get the RG on the board. But that's a lot easier said than done.
A little pressure cannon cart on the right-hand side. Fireball and Fire Spear are going to go out and clean up that entire push. One little Hog Snout does get in.
Nice +2 elixir lead here for Lucas as he defends with the Musketeer. Gets the mortar set up. No connection for him, but pressure in and a nice poison.
So here we go. Sudden death overtime on its way. So far, it's been all Lucas all the time. We'll see if Mao can make some adjustments and actually get into the second level. Has really only done chip damage thus far.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the patience, or I guess maybe the lack of aggression we're seeing from Mao, is patience and not lack of confidence. We need to see him get aggressive here. And right now, that cannon cart has a little bit more life than he'd like. Now with the mortar setup, he can turn this into a very, very nice offense. Lucas here going on this offense with 2 cannon carts.
Well, you see how different the Giant Skeleton Bomb is now, right? That Giant Skeleton Bomb barely even disrupted the wheels of that cannon cart. So with that nerf, you see a huge, huge difference in how this interaction plays out.
Yeah, and getting a little bit overwhelmed here is Mao, 11:45 or 11:49 to 18:28. And Lucas seems to be very comfortable here. Now we see some offense out of Oblivion.
Yeah, Royal Giant finally knowing that Mortar is going to be forced out and forced out late, and the Mortar does not pick up the Royal Giant. One shot does get in. Now it does retarget, but putting pressure on that side is exactly what Mao wants to do.
And a good job there of Lucas taking the Mother Witch off the board before he gets too aggressive with those piggies. The last thing you want to have to deal with is that Royal Giant plus an ocean of piggies behind. Now a very defensive poison here from Lucas as he takes a good amount of damage.
Yeah, Mao just forced to eat that right-hand side, making the hard choices right now. The question is, can they pay off? Giant Skeleton almost goes to tower. Could have been a significant swing, doesn't quite do it. Royal Giant in, has to control the cannon cart, does Mao. Lucas at the finish line here, 25 seconds left. The question is, can he cross it? Will not get a touch on that side. And oh, boy, here we go. Piggy's in on the left-hand lane.
Oh, look at that pull. The Fisherman pulls the cannon cart to the tower. The Fisherman pulls the cannon cart in, and that should do it, Rich. That was crazy.
Trying to get his way in on the right-hand side. Fireball gets down. Not going to happen. GG, well played. Back-to-back Lucas Gamer, your June and July Clash Royale League champion.
$40,000, 200 points in less than 30 days. That young man right there, the Brazilian, the first ever 2021 repeat champion, and he had to work for it, Rich. He really did, going all the way to the Super Grand Final. What great stuff in that final game. Mao able to put it together pretty well, but Lucas still in control, still on top, and now he has won the most money in 2021 and has the most points.
Man, this was just such a rough one for Mao. You know, we talked about being less than predictable. The Giant Skeleton Royal Giant. I can't remember who someone was talking about this deck specifically that he played beforehand, and you have to feel like when he saw the cannon cart and the mortar together, that this was going to be a rough one, and it was all the way through. Lucas plays a brilliant weekend the entire way from top to bottom and walks away with a back-to-back. Mao certainly unhappy, but still leaves this weekend with $10,000 and maybe more importantly, a lot of respect.
Just an incredible sequence there at the end. It looked like Mao had really taken over control of that game, but what was crazy about it, Eric talks about density a lot. The density of that Giant Skeleton actually made it so that that Royal Giant on the right-hand side was not able to get in at what looked like 2 shots. And because that Royal Giant was held up where it was, Lucas was able to play that cannon cart up high and offset to the left. That way he could still focus on the Royal Giant and then turn it into offense. But what Mao didn't expect was that cannon cart to get pulled by his defensive fisherman sitting off in no man's land, pulls it in, gets a couple shots on that Princess Tower. GG, well played. What a crazy sequence of interactions there that all bounce in favor of our two-time champion.
And that's the big thing here, two-time champion. You talk about Lucas and the conversation for Lucas going from being a top-tier ladder player to a true CRL pro. The story's been nerves. He's talked about it a ton, about how nerves got the better of him a lot in CRL, the switch to 2v2 being very helpful. Well, it seems like the one thing that might have been holding Lucas back from absolute greatness might have melted away over the last 8 weeks, and now you have a two-time back-to-back champion who, as we've said over and over again this weekend, is peaking at maybe the most important time in his career.
The first time we ever saw Lucas in CRL, it was a kind of lackluster start for a man that had a lot of potential coming in. And then he was very transparent about why that had happened. Exactly what you said. The nerves were there. It's a big stage. It's a lot of people watching. It's a whole lot on the line. Now you add in another year of experience on top of that, playing at the highest level for the most money against the best players regularly. Lucas now has really found himself, found that comfort, and found that sweet spot that you want when you're one of the best at anything that you do. He is right now in his golden era.
Man, it's great seeing a player play at their best. You talk about playing at their best. The players at the top of our rankings right now are all just firing on all cylinders, and it really feels like we are moving towards a really exciting conclusion. And not to mention the number of players we're going to see in October battling through that last chance qualifier, and I'm very curious to see our standings after this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we know a few people that will definitely be there, guys that were not able to get through Lucas today. If Viper wants to do it, if, you know, Samuel wants to do it, they're going to have to step it up as we get farther along into the year because, you know, not anyone can do it once. Most people can't even get to the top 8, but doing it once, you wonder, all right, all that luck came through. Can it happen again? Lucas X Gamer is able to make it happen 2 times in a row. And speaking of that man, he is here to talk to us here in the booth. Lucas Gamer, my man, our 2-time champion. Congratulations, my friend. How are you doing today, and how does it feel to be our first 2-time winner?
I'm sorry for the sound. Thank you so much, man. It feels amazing. Like I could never imagine. I really worked hard this past 2 months. I really gave everything on me. Really practiced. Had an amazing experience overall with my family. We were all together. Now some of them got COVID, so we couldn't really be together this time after I won. But last time it was amazing. Like hugging my entire family, see them. They're happy, and I heard them from their bedrooms this time, and man, it was amazing.
I mean, a lot to celebrate at home there for you. I mean, obviously the money is there. You get that 2 months in a row, but really
The
just to
money
show.
It's just a bonus. I'm doing this because I really want to be the best. I really want to.
And that's what I was
to
going to
see my
say,
work paying off.
was that it does seem like you truly are the best in the world right now, man. It seems like no one can stop you. What has changed over the last year for you so much to go from where you were at back in, let's say, early 2020 or late 2019 to where you're at now in 2021? How do you get to the level you're at?
It was really hard work. Like I used to play ladder every time, just play among the best. Used to use a lot of different decks. I still do it on ladder. In the first weeks of ladder, which we call early season, I practice a lot of decks. I practice with friends such as Molite, such as Samuel. I played global tournaments. I green 2 accounts. I have a second account where I practice other decks. So I'm really committed to the game, and I think that when I started to commit myself to competitive, I started to learn more decks, more archetypes, and I really learned other ways of playing rather than just cycle, because cycle was my main archetype since 2019, since 2018. I always loved cycle. It was what first made me proud and amazed with Clash Royale, just cycle decks.
So now that you've mastered the cycle and you're mastering other archetypes out there, let's talk about maybe other masters in the game. When you talk about Sam, you talk about Ruben, you talk about Mo, a lot of these guys, Morton, you're going to run into them at World Finals. Is there anyone out there who you still are either excited or maybe a little nervous to run up against?
I'm excited to play against them all.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry for.
No, that's good. Go ahead.
I'm excited to play against them all. Like every time people ask me, "Oh, who do you want to play?" I always say the best. Like I really want to be the best, and I want to beat the best. I don't want no easy work. I really commit myself. I really love what I'm doing. This become my job, and I'm really amazed by it because I love this game, and it's amazing to be among the best. And I really want to be one of the best. I want to play them all. Mugi, Mola, Sam, all players that I really admire. Ruben, I want to play them all and beat them all. And
well, I mean, as of right now, it does look like you can call yourself one of the best in the world. The last thing I'm going to ask you before we let you go celebrate, Lucas, is what's next? Are you going to go for that third monthly championship? Are you going to sit back for a little bit? Or are you just going to keep going, hopefully win all the way out?
Of course, I'm going to go to Red for top 10 ladder finishes, maybe top 1 right now that I'm almost secured awards with the points I've made. Wow. I want to keep my level at the highest until the World Finals. I won't back up a single bit. I will just keep grinding, keep practicing, even do some streams on Twitch, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you recently signed with Chazmat Gaming, who I know is a big supporter of your Twitch streams. Has been streaming on Twitch, has that been helping you a lot, stay on top of your game and also playing under pressure?
I don't think so. I think that Twitch for me is much more of nice time with some people on early season, especially because sometimes I kind of struggle to play because I just played a lot. Like, less days of season are crazy. Like, you keep playing there, and sometimes I even play for 15 hours, 14 hours straight. It's crazy. So on early season, sometimes it's kind of hard to play. But when you have the chat, those people, like, along with you, it feels so much better, and it feels like a nice time.
Good, man. Great to hear from you. And honestly, congratulations. Go and catch Lucas's streams. If you guys haven't got enough of him here at CRL, go support him on Twitter. Lucas, congratulations, my friend. We're so proud of you here in our respective booths all over the world. Our first 2-time champion, man. Go get some rest. Go celebrate with your family as best that you can. We obviously wish them well and hope that they're going to be healthy moving forward. And hopefully we'll see you again next month.
Thank you so much, man. Congrats for everything. Thank you for the amazing casting, and I will do my best to be here next month talking to you again.
All right, sounds good, man. You take it easy. And as we say goodbye to Lucas X Gamer, we're going to bring Rich back on the broadcast for him and I to say goodbye to you as, of course, our champion there gets to go and hang out with his family, go and celebrate being the best in the world once again. And as he said, the money is a nice little cherry on top. And speaking of cherries on top, where does Lucas fall in our global leaderboard? That is the question now as we bring Rich back on to say goodbye to the rest of you guys.
That's the big question indeed, Andrew, and I think we're going to see the results here in just a moment. But what I think is going on here is that we're going to see Lucas about, there we go, 50 points behind Mohamed Light. But Lucas is now the money leader for the season. 41,500 earned for Lucas, 34,500 for Mohamed Light. So very, very tight in that race at the top.
Yeah, well, either way, Rich, not a bad start to the year for playing Clash Royale and a lot more prize potential out there. If you missed it, we're giving away $1.5 million this year as we are halfway through what feels like what we'll call our regular season before we get to our last chance qualifier and our world finals. These names here, you know them all. You've seen them all. They're all great, and you're probably going to see them again at World Finals. But like you said, Rich, it's all about that 50 points at the top.
A lot of points at the top. And quick note there, Reichert, with his finish, moves into the top 16. So another big step towards that championship. And of course, while if you're just starting right now, maybe the championship's out of the way. But look, you believe you got what it takes. If you're in the chat right now going, I'm better than these guys, put your money where your mouth is. CRL happens every month. Top 1,000 ladder, you get your invite. And next month, you can come out here and show everybody how great you are at Clash Royale. And we hope to see you here. We expect to see you here, whether you're on the broadcast or just watching. We'll be back again next month with our August monthly final. For Eric, for Josh, and for my brother from another mother, Andrew Guy, I'm Rich Slayton. We'll see you back here next month. That's it for CRL. Take care and make sure to drink water.
Bye.